I opened a travel agency in the world of cultivation. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 426. This is a vlog of more than an hour, shot by Yang Zhao, and the content of the filming is a daily life of their parents. First, the community where their parents live is introduced. The community does not look new. The highest one has only 6 floors and the lowest one has only 5 floors. The villagers who were urgently relocated are now resettled in several communities nearby. The same is true for Yang Zhao's parents. According to Yang Zhao, there is a morning market within 2 steps of the community, and there is a small square next to it. The most important thing is that there is a large fire station across the street, and there is a hospital on the slope. She watched Yang Zhao in the video accompany her parents to the morning market, watch them cook and eat together, and then Yang Zhao took them to the hospital for a comprehensive physical examination, watching them take a nap and take a walk, and then go to the square dance in the evening. In the video, I don't know if Yang Zhao has grown a little taller, which makes her parents in his video much shorter than she remembered. They are smiling when looking at their phones, and the wrinkles on their faces have accumulated a few more points. His parents' newly dyed hair can be seen, and there are still some indelible black marks on their hairline and ears. In the middle of the video, Yang Zhao's young face appeared. He put down his phone and sat next to the 2 elderly people and began to show Yang Zhao the medical examination list. The medical examination list stated that except for his father's old heart problem, the old couple were all normal. Her parents were a little reserved when facing the camera. As soon as Yang Zhao finished reading the list, the old couple began to ask Yang Zhao about the phone. Zhao, are you in trouble? Your father and I have also followed your videos. You haven't updated for more than a month. You should send us more videos when you have nothing to do. You are like a kite with a broken string. When you go out, you disappear. When Yang Zhao's mother heard this, she patted the old man's arm and scolded him. Hey, why are you talking about this? The child has serious things to do. Then she turned her head to look at the phone again, but her eyes were not focused. It's not easy for you to be alone outside. Eat and drink. Don't worry about us. We are rich now, and we are not sick. Besides, Zhao often brings passengers to visit us. Yang Zhao explained that he hired Zhao to take care of his parents. Zhao, do you still remember Uncle Liu who lives next door to you? The old couple talked to the video for nearly 20 minutes and talked about all the major events that happened to all the acquaintances they knew in the past year. In the end, it seemed that there was nothing to say. The old couple was silent for a while, and her father opened his mouth carefully and asked, Zhao, when can you go home? After saying this, Mother Yang seemed to know that she had said the wrong thing, and hurriedly said, I'm not urging you to come back. I just know that you are busy with work. Please contact us more often. In the end, Yang Zhao recorded it in his own room. Sister, I heard that you were injured, and the injury is quite serious. Don't worry, I kept it a secret from my parents, and didn't dare to let them know. As he spoke, his eyes began to turn red. Sister, be careful outside. Don't be so stupid. Yang Zhao watched this video 2 or 3 times, and finally fell asleep with tears in her arms, while holding her phone. She didn't even give her brother Yang Zhao a reply. Because Yang Zhao didn't know when she could go back, she didn't even know if she could get through this difficult time. She couldn't make any promises, and couldn't even open her mouth to make false excuses. Chapter 427. Reporting safety. The next morning, after drinking the decoction prescribed by Dr. Luan Chuangxing, she approached the 2 doctors as they were free. Dr. Luan, do you know any medicine that can quickly remove scars? Luan Chuangxing, who was picking worms, raised his eyebrows slightly. In 2 days, they would go to Xianfu, and some things had to be taken care of in advance. Remove scars? Oh, you finally remembered that you are a little girl. I saw you running around with those 2 scars on your face these days, and I thought you didn't take it seriously. In addition to being injured all over, Yang Zhao also had 2 scars on her face in the pirate battle. One was shorter and ran diagonally from the left eyebrow bone to near the right ear, and the other was longer, running from the right cheekbone to the back, occupying the entire face, and almost cutting off her ear. However, when treating, meridian injuries are the most serious concern, so Yang Zhao didn't pay much attention to these scars. The most important thing is that there is no mirror on Black Pearl Island, and she herself has not used magic in the past few days because of the serious meridian injuries. Since he couldn't see how ugly he looked, he naturally wasn't in a hurry. Luan Chuangshan joked, used a dust removal technique to brush off the dust on his hands, reached into his sleeves, and felt around, and took out 2 small rolls of green cloth. Here, cut this thing into small pieces, apply it to the scar, and the scar will disappear after 5 or 6 days. Yang Zhao took it, and looked at it carefully. This thing should be a large piece of cloth stacked and rolled up. It was very thin, and even a single layer was translucent, but it felt like the skin of some creature, and it smelled fishy and bitter. This thing didn't look cheap, but it wasn't something Yang Zhao liked. A week was a bit long. Is there any that works over time? I have to see someone today, and I want to get rid of this scar now. Haha, can't you just use a magic trick on yourself? Why are you asking me for medicine? When Dr. Luan Chuangshan heard what Yang Zhao said, he reached out to take back the 2 rolls of green leather. Yang Zhao smiled awkwardly and took a step back, put away the 2 scrolls, and finally bowed and apologized. Isn't it that I can't use my spiritual power now? I really have something to do, and I'm not here to tease you, senior. Kid, your mind is fickle. Luan Chuangshan murmured and cast a small sleight of hand on Yang Zhao. This thing can only last for a day. Don't play with it too much, he instructed, turned around and started to put his live insects in a large dustpan. Yang Zhao bowed happily and said goodbye, and then on the way back to the house, he met Master Shenroi, who bowed and bowed. Wulian Xianzhen, who cast a sleight of hand on you. This area is a bit small, it can only cover a scar. Yang Zhao reached out and touched it. She couldn't see the situation on her face, but her fingers could feel the scar. It's to cover the scar. Master, I have something else to trouble you with today. Go ahead. Yang Zhao rubbed his fingers a little embarrassedly and explained the whole story in detail. Shenroi nodded after listening. It's not a big deal. You are so filial. In the following day, people all over the island saw Shenroi flying around with Yang Zhao. They walked around for most of the day before stopping. In the afternoon, Yang Zhao had dinner and hid in the house alone, not seeing anyone. An hour later, on the video app, under the account of Yang Zhao of U9 Temple, a video was finally updated. Every 2 minutes, many groups exploded, and a hot search climbed to the end of the hot search list in less than 2 minutes. The zombie blogger has updated. Chapter 428, Video. Family members, who understands? The blogger I follow suddenly resurrected. A full 43 days, 5 hours and 33 minutes. I thought the blogger had traveled through time. Don't be too exaggerated. Do you think this is love? You remember the time so clearly. You don't know how hard it is for us who follow the bloggers. We are suffering so much. Come and comfort me. I want to cultivate immortality and be as happy as the sky. Asterisk asterisk. There has been news in our group that blogger Yang Zhao was attacked by pirates and was seriously injured, causing us to tag those big guys who have news channels every day, wanting to know some details. But now it seems that the blogger has passed this level. It's a pity that this trending search just touched the end of the trending search list for less than 2 minutes before it disappeared without a trace and did not attract any attention on the internet. In the video, Yang Zhao has red lips and white teeth and is full of vigor and vitality. She is wearing a well-made Ming Dynasty hanfu, a sky blue top with a moon white skirt, with bluebirds embroidered on the clothes, and longevity vines of the same color embroidered on the edges of the clothes. She is wearing a pair of embroidered shoes with the Chinese character 1 meaning 10,000 on her feet. This hanfu is the same as the 2 sets of clothes made for her by Guo Fu Min Qiang a few days ago. This set has never been worn until now. The biggest difference in this video is that someone helped Yang Zhao record it. Many old fans know that 99% of the videos under Yang Zhao's account are recorded by her, so she rarely appears in the video. The public's perspective is to follow the anchor into this fantasy world. This time, Yang Zhao is more like a blogger. She smiled slightly nervously in the camera and touched her cheeks from time to time. Look, this is a country I conquered, Black Pearl Island. Then, the introduction of Black Pearl Island appeared in text below the video, including its geographical location, the area of the main island, the population, and cash crops, etc. In the video, Yang Zhao turned around on a small hill outside the town with his arms wide open, and then the camera slowly rose, and the newly built town came into view. It was past breakfast time, and most of the adults in the town drove their boats to work in the sea field. Only children and little people were left in the town, running around in the town, busy, and no one knew what they were doing. The newly launched barrage program on the video software began to fill the barrage at a speed visible to the naked eye. The most common ones were repeated barrages that were air. Of course, there were also some differences. The blogger is the anchor of appearance today. This dress shines in the sun, and it looks like others can't afford it. That's not right. The blogger said this is Black Pearl Island, but I remember that the town on Black Pearl Island doesn't look like this. Those plant dwarfs are the tourists who went there. So many people were selected. Why am I the only one missing? Angry. In the video, Yang Zhao walked into the town quickly. Maybe everyone can see it in the video. Our town has a new skin. This time the skin is cleaner and tidier than the previous one. As for why the skin was changed, she didn't say a word. If she didn't mention it, someone in the barrage would naturally mention it. According to reliable information, the reason why the Black Pearl Island map has a new skin is because it was attacked by pirates and the entire town was burned down. WC, what you said before is true, right? According to the previous habits of the anchor, such a big event should be filmed and posted on the internet. Indeed, so many things happened before, and the blogger did not hide it. This pirate thing is a bit unreliable. It should be true, otherwise there is something that can push the reconstruction of the entire island town, and it will cost money. Yang Zhao took everyone to visit several towns. All the towns were newly built, and the horizontal and vertical architectural styles and regulations were similar. This confirmed some of the speculations in the barrage. After all, everyone in the world knows that infrastructure costs money. At this time, the pirates and non-pirates started arguing in the barrage. Pirates must have come, otherwise why would they all be pushed to rebuild? Yes, the style was slums at first, and now it's a holiday home with seaside features. The key is that this feature is too Chinese. I grew up by the sea, and it looks familiar at first glance. I said some people shouldn't be too outrageous. Pirates can also blow up something without wind. That's right. Who said that pirates must come to rebuild a town? Maybe the blogger rebuilt it to improve the living environment of the workers. At the end of the video, Yang Zhao found an open space, shook his wrist, and the giant long spear appeared in his hand. I think everyone hasn't seen me playing with a gun for a while. Today is sunny and warm, and I'll show you a way to cheer you up. As he said that, he held the gun with both hands and exerted force suddenly. A burst sound of splitting wind sounded in the video, and the giant long spear in Yang Zhao's hand directly became a phantom in the sky, with a posture that water could not splash into. When she played with this gun, the flowers, plants, and trees around her were in trouble. No matter whether it was a tree or a stone, it would break and shatter if it hit her. In less than 2 minutes, the surrounding environment was in a mess. This video made people excited, and many people posted memes in the video barrage. If I want to compete with the blogger, what should I pay attention to? Please inform us in advance, so that we can have a good time. A small short video broadcaster can shoot videos like this. What happened to the tens of millions of yuan and hundreds of millions of yuan of investment in the domestic entertainment industry? The reason why martial arts dramas are declining in the domestic entertainment industry is because there are too few male audiences. After finishing the moves, Yang Zhao was not red in the face or out of breath. Today's video ends here. I will go to Xianfu to form a pill in a few days. I will record a new video for everyone then. Yang Zhao held the giant long spear and waved at the camera. The video ends here. In general, this video does not present any new content, except the introduction of the new town. It is not in the same style as previous videos, but the news of forming a pill at the end directly triggered the comments area. I remember that the blogger has been building the foundation for less than a year, and he has already formed the Dan. I don't even know how to practice key. Back quote. She really makes me cry. So beautiful. When girls are beautiful, boys have nothing to do. Forming the Dan. So the reason why I haven't posted any videos in the past month is to prepare for the Dan. Not because of the pirate's injury. I always hear some messed up noises these days, which scares me to death. T_T. Let's not talk about anything else. I just want to ask the blogger, you have already formed the Dan. It's time to open a sect, right? I graduated from college. I'm in good health. My 3 views are normal. I can endure hardships and have a conscience. As long as you accept me as your disciple, you will be my second parent. Master, please accept your disciple. Back quote. The above is too outrageous. The blogger is still so young, and he doesn't want a son as old as you. 1 million to become an apprentice. Blogger master, I'm here to help my daughter and son become an apprentice. My daughter Fu Yan is 9 years old this year and is practicing Sanda. My son Fu King is 5 years old this year and is learning Chinese painting. Both children have never been afraid of hardship since they were young. These days I have taken a lot of photos of the children's daily life in my account. If you are interested, you can click in and take a look. As long as you are willing to accept me as a disciple, I will pay 1 million in tuition. Wow, this is Buffett's dining list. The title of 1 million to become an apprentice is already mentioned. Are you afraid that others don't know that this is a scam? I don't have 1 million. Back quote. Blogger, do you need a leg pendant that can eat and go to the toilet by itself? After graduating from college, please download the anti-fraud app and don't transfer money to strangers. I'm tired of saying this, but I still have to say it. Chapter 429, Advanced Preparation. Yang Zhao didn't consider the noise on the internet. She took a small video of her face and sent it to the family group. In the video, she looked ruddy, energetic, and even her eyes were shining. She briefly said that, because of the natural disaster, she had been busy with the reconstruction work on the island for more than a month, so she forgot to reply to the message at home. She also praised herself in the video, saying that she worked hard and achieved great results. To be honest, she felt guilty about this nonsense. Her behavior was a serious theft of the fruits of others' labor, which would be despised by others. Fortunately, she was just bragging in the family group to comfort her parents. Her parents always praised their children, and the words they always said were, "Good children are praised." This time was no exception. In the family group, they praised her and said that she was a person who could do great things since she was a child. They also dug up her master Lu Doran and various elders when she was a child to support their statements. Yang Zhao blushed and could dig out 2 bedrooms and a living room on the ground with his toes. Mom and dad, you know that what I do is confidential and I can't tell anyone. If this is told to anyone, Yang Zhao's battlefield of death will shift to relatives and acquaintances. Hey, don't worry, we eat more salt than you eat noodles, and we can't control our mouths. The next day, Shenroi brought Luan Chuangsheng and Feng to discuss the treatment of meridians with Yang Zhao. The most difficult part of this process is that you can't form a pill when you are forming a pill. Luan Chuangsheng scribbled a picture for her in the air. When a person forms a pill, the spiritual power in the body will gather in the danshan to help form the pill. This is the instinct of human beings and the instinct of cultivation, but your situation is special. In order to have more time for treatment, we can't take the last step. Yang Zhao had never formed a pill before, and although he understood what he said, he couldn't do anything. He felt the same way and didn't know where the difficulty was. Luan Chuangsheng saw her calm face and knew that she didn't know the hardship and danger. But, since she is a patient, you can't scare her with treatment methods. Anyway, the most difficult point is that, if you form the elixir very quickly, we will have the action of breaking the elixir. Breaking the elixir? His Yang Zhao couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. These 2 words didn't sound harmonious and friendly. Shenroi slowly turned the silver conch. Don't worry, I will do this when the time comes. I won't let you break the elixir yourself. You just need to stay awake during the process. Stay awake. Does it hurt? How do you say that? The 3 of them looked at each other and shook their heads. As the master, Shenroi spoke more directly. We haven't broken the elixir either, so we don't know if it hurts or not. Feng continued slowly at the side. In fact, the most important thing is the impact of spiritual power. This is equivalent to breaking up all the spiritual power that was originally rushing inward to form a pill and reversing the direction to rush outward. It is difficult to calm the restlessness of spiritual power in this process. What you need to do is to stay awake during the whole process and guide these spiritual powers to do what they should do. This sounds like an easy job, and the key is that, because these three people have no experience, Yang Zhao has to make the worst plan. Ding ding ding, there were a few knocks on the door. Yang Zhao opened the door and saw several little beam people helping each other carry a few big bags standing outside the door. During the treatment, you only have to worry about this matter. We will take care of everything else. Now you think about the countermeasures. The three of them left after saying that. After Yang Zhao sent the three people away, he turned around and looked at the little bean people. Shenroi and the others saw someone coming, said hello and left. What is this? The big bags fell to the ground with a thud. The little beam people untied the bags, and you filled a big bag of dirty plastic fragments. Yang Zhao recognized it at a glance. It was the fragments of the outdoor camera. She squatted down and rummaged through the bag. There were few intact cameras. Most of them showed signs of damage. Don't worry, give them all to me. Yang Zhao took out the large Kyankan bag and put all the bags in it. In the evening, Yang Zhao transported the things to Guo Fumin Qiang and at the same time asked Guo Fumin Qiang to send her an MP3 player with a large speaker. Chapter 430. The day before Yang Zhao left, Wang Shu, who was recuperating in Leiyuan Prefecture, came to Hizhu Island by flying boat. When he got off the flying boat, Yang Zhao was so surprised that he couldn't close his mouth. Wang Shu is really too tall now, even taller than the last time he saw him. Of course, it may also be because he was still in bed at that time, so he didn't have such a strong intuitive feeling. Now Yang Zhao stood in front of him, and he couldn't see his face, even if he looked up, but could only see his chin far away. He couldn't even touch his chin with his hand. Yang Zhao was only the height of a civilized stick in front of Wang Shu. Anyone who saw him get off the flying boat and then looked at the flying boat behind him would think that Wang Shu must have been very frustrated all the way. Yang Zhao estimated that he had to hunch his back to avoid hitting his head when sitting in it. The most important thing is that this man is tall and thin, so thin that his bones are standing alone. When the clothes on his body were blown by the sea breeze, he looked like a dummy covered with clothes by two sticks and stuck in a rice field. Under the sunlight, layers of silver stripes appeared on Wang Shu's exposed skin. He didn't look like a normal human being at all. Yang Zhao was more than 4 meters away from him and asked curiously, "How tall are you now? Have you measured it? The ruler here is different from ours, but I estimate it to be 2 meters and 5. Wang Shu took out 2 pieces of cloth from somewhere and skillfully tied up his rustling sleeves and trouser legs. "What are you doing?" Yang Zhao was stunned by his actions. "Hey, reduce the wind resistance, otherwise it will be too tiring." Although Wang Shu was a little too tall, he moved very quickly and smoothly. Well, it's hard to judge. But Yang Zhao was already a mature adult and could skillfully change the subject. "Why did you come here suddenly this time? I thought you would stay there and find a sect to become your disciple." Wang Shu stood up and moved and nodded with satisfaction. Although it was a bit ugly to tie up the clothes, it was really convenient. "Comrade Yang, your most important task now is to form the elixir. Don't worry about other things." Wang Shu smiled, and his thin face was torn into layers of lines. "Besides, I can't put everything on you. I'm coming to Black Pearl Island now, taking over this burden, and you can also form the elixir with peace of mind." The two of them walked back with the little bean man, chatting and laughing, but Yang Zhao froze in front of the door. Wang Shu was so tall and came a little suddenly. There was no house suitable for him to live in the whole island. There were not even suitable tables, chairs, and benches. What to do? Yang Zhao had no choice but to go to the nearby mountains to find 2 big stones that were not much shorter than her and carry them down to use as tables and chairs for Wang Shu first. At least he could sit down to eat and drink. Wang Shu saw Yang Zhao carrying the big stone down, and his eyes, which were already protruding, almost popped out. No, is this made of foam? Wang Shu pushed the big stone with his hand, but found that he couldn't push it. Oh my god, my great grandmother, you look so slender, how come you are so strong? This is cultivation? No, you are really beyond the scope of human beings, right? He looked at Yang Zhao with sparkling eyes, eager to learn. How much do you weigh now? Have you missed the maximum threshold of your strength? Have you had a blood test? Have you had a DNA test? Have special proteins formed in your body? Yang Zhao looked at his undisguised eyes, and even felt that he wanted to slice himself up. Please take your eyes off, otherwise I will be too lazy to talk to you. Hey, occupational disease. Wang Shu burst into laughter. I have been sleeping and eating every day these days. It's a bit abnormal to hold it in for a long time. Don't mind it. Shen Ruoyu, who was walking around the island taking pictures, saw the two big rocks and Wang Shu sitting on the big rocks to eat when he came back. In the past 2 days, Shen Ruoyu has picked up his interest in taking pictures again. Faced with their dilemma, Shen Ruoyu sighed. Wulian Xianzhen, why can't you open your mind? Shen Ruoyu pointed with his hand, and a 3-meter high earth wall was erected in front of the two people. Power is yours, only if you know how to use it. If you don't know how to use it, why do you practice it? Are you idle? Looking at Shen Ruoyu, who turned and walked away, Yang Zhao opened his mouth and could only say something hesitantly. Master is right. After Shen Ruoyu walked away, Yang Zhao and Wang Shu looked at each other and burst into laughter. The next thing was also simple. Although Yang Zhao had broken many meridians in his body, he could still build an earth wall. Then he found that building a house is not just about building a wall, it is also a science. Yang Zhao didn't make it difficult for himself. He spent money to find an experienced monk on the island to build a 4-meter high one, and with the help of hundreds of little bean people, he made a thatched roof. That night, Wang Shu lived in the new earth house. Chapter 431. You were right to rush out at that time. Yang Zhao sat on the flying boat. The sky was gloomy and the wind was strong. Raindrops would occasionally blow on the flying boat. Although you and the workers on the island are of different value to us, they are also human lives. Human lives are at stake. When pirates come, they are absolutely weak and can only survive under your wings. Yang Zhao wrapped the candy in his mouth and looked outside with lifeless eyes. You have received more than 20 years of modern education and have been exposed to so many deeds of ancestors. If you are unable to protect yourself, it's okay. You can hide with them or escape to protect yourself. But you have the ability. You have the force value, and you know that you have the force value to protect them. When you really encounter something dangerous like pirates, your previous education, previous living environment, previous values, and everything in the past will push you to take that step forward. This is not wrong. This is courage. Yang Zhao bit the candy in his mouth with a click and began to chew it. If you are poor, you should take care of yourself. If you are rich, you should help the world. This is our unique romance and wisdom in life. It's not wrong. Although you encountered an accident in the process, the decision you made was not wrong. Don't doubt yourself. Young people's blood is hot. After chewing the candy in his mouth, Yang Zhao stuffed another one into his mouth. She was happy or unhappy now. The conversation between the little bean man political commissar and her last night kept echoing in her mind. For more than a month, she has been tortured by injuries and despair. Regret is like a quiet sea, drowning her little by little, making her breathless. Since she arrived at Black Pearl Island, her mental state has not been very good. It seems that Black Pearl Island is a disaster for her, and she is sad every step of the way. She is an adult, and adults are used to swallowing the bitter fruit by themselves. But obviously, Yang Zhao, an adult, is not qualified, and everyone has noticed his mental state. In fact, this matter should be handled by Shen Ruoyu. As a master, he is of a seniority, old, and experienced. It is the duty of the elders to comfort the emotions of the younger generation and answer the confusion of the younger generation. But the generation gap between Shen Ruoyu and Yang Zhao is too big. For Shenryu, he and Yang Zhao not only have the distinction between men and women, and the distinction between humans and ghosts, but more importantly, the eras they live in are too different. Shenryu noticed this from their daily interactions in the past. Yang Zhao rarely listened to what he said, and there was a huge gap in their thinking. If he couldn't listen, he said, it would be better not to say it. Of course, it was true that he was cruel. If jade is not polished, it will not become a tool. He hoped that Yang Zhao could break through this level himself. But Guo Fumin Qiang was not in this process. During the 1-month healing time, the 3 strongest fighters on the island were guarding Yang Zhao, which physically isolated her from Xiaodaran. In addition, due to her height, Xiaodaran could rarely face Yang Zhao's expression and analyze her emotions. This led to Xiaodaran discovering Yang Zhao's problem a step later. But Guo Fumin Qiang chose to solve this matter more actively. They fully affirmed Yang Zhao's behavior and allowed her to float to the surface in the silent ocean to take a breath. As for whether she would drown in the sea, it depends on whether she can successfully form a pill. Yang Zhao suddenly felt a heat on the top of her head. She glanced out and found that their flying boat had flown over the dark cloud area. The warm sunlight shone on her head through the window. Xianfu. When Yang Zhao heard the name, she thought it was a relic in the sky. Only then did she realize that it was a big island. A very big island, with a mountain range running through the island. The mountain range was towering into the clouds, and the top of the mountain was covered with snow, towering and blocking the sky. When there was still half a day's journey from Xianfu, Yang Zhao had already seen the mountain range on the flying boat. She was shocked that such a small island could actually support such a high mountain range. Even if this island called Xianfu is equivalent to 10 Black Pearl Islands, it is still small. This is not scientific. When their flying boat was more than 30 miles away from Xiandao, it was intercepted by a big man with a fishtail. The front is private territory. Stop. Yang Zhao stepped out of the flying boat and bowed, the sea breeze blowing her clothes rustling. Is it Xianfu in front? Yes. The big man with the fishtail looked at Yang Zhao. I wonder what you are here for, little Taoist friend. Yang Zhao took out the Xianfu token from his arms and threw it over. I'm here to make a pill. The big man with the fishtail took the token and carefully verified it, then threw it back to Yang Zhao and made way. Watching the flying boat flying away, the big man shook his head. These days are really lively. Why are there so many guests? The flying boat got closer, and Yang Zhao saw large tracts of farmland on the island. But strangely, there was no village on the island, and there were few people in the fields. There was only a small town, which was located halfway up the mountain. It would take at least more than 50 miles to walk from the small town to the farthest field. It seems that there are no mortals here, only cultivators. Mortals cannot take care of the crops from such a distance. Even in modern society, mortals with cars cannot drive 50 miles every day to weed the crops. This is unrealistic. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 432. After the flying boat dropped Yang Zhao off, it started to return to Black Pearl Island. Shenryu, Luan Chuangsheng and Feng were chatting and laughing in front of the 3 people flying again, while Yang Zhao followed behind listlessly. The group had a clear goal and headed straight for the small town halfway up the mountain. In order to accommodate Yang Zhao, who was still injured, the group flew very slowly. However, during the flight, Yang Zhao saw a few people working in the fields and opened his eyes wide with curiosity. Some people below were pinching their fingers and chanting spells, and the flames were divided into very small pieces, like a layer of small flames as small as and spread in the ridges of the fields, quickly eating up the weeds in the entire field. There were also spells that turned over the soil of a whole field in a dozen seconds, and there were also spells that summoned clouds and rain. What is this? Is this considered full automation with the characteristics of the cultivation world? That's not right. People are standing here, and the labor cost of the cultivators is much more expensive than the output of these fields. But you are not talking about automation. It is faster than automation. Yang Zhao also used magic to help the Little Beam people open up Wasteland, but compared with the following people, Yang Zhao's magic application was really rough and could not be used in a refined hall. When the group landed at the city gate was also very strange. It was just a bare doorway, without even a gate. There was a large plaque hanging on the gate tower, and the plaque was written with a single word Shun. What was even more strange was that there was no one guarding the door, and everyone could enter and exit freely. There were still people guarding outside the island, so why was there no one in the city? With doubts, the 4 people entered the city unimpeded. As soon as they entered the city, Yang Zhao knew that this was not an ordinary city. Unlike most cities, in this small city, the entire street was bare. There were no shops doing business, and most of them were private houses with their own doors and courtyards. There were so few shops, and various pharmacies and medical clinics accounted for the vast majority of them. There were also few pedestrians on the road, and they basically came and went in a hurry, and few stopped. After walking 2 steps forward, they saw a tall tower in the city that covered a large area. The tower looked to have more than 20 floors. Yang Zhao roughly estimated that the lowest floor of the tower was at least as big as 4 football fields. There were doors on each floor, and people could be seen flying in and out of the doors. The people Yang Zhao and his team had met in half of the city were not as many as those in and out of this tower. It seemed that this tower was a public entertainment venue like a cultural square. Of course, Yang Zhao also suspected that this tower was a place for forming pills. After walking all the way and not finding an inn, Yang Zhao consciously stopped a passerby who was in a hurry to buy things to ask, "Inn? How can there be an inn in Shuncheng? You can only rent a house here." Yang Zhao took out 4 silver bars. "Dao, you can see that we are new here and don't know the details of this place. Can you take us to the Yahan to rent a house? I will treat you to a cup of tea." The man first looked at Shenroi and the other two standing not far away, and then took the silver. "It's not a big deal." He led the way with a smile, and Yang Zhao began to ask questions in his mind. "Is this your first time here?" "Hi, Shuncheng has a lot more people these days. In the past, there were only 200 or 300 people living in the whole city. You could sit down and have a drink with any ghost you met. Everyone comes to Shuncheng to earn a chance to form a pill. Who has the heart to do business here? All the businesses here belong to Fu, and all the houses here also belong to Fu, so there are no inns. You can only rent a house from Fu." Chapter 433, Heavenly Tomb. For the sake of money, Zhang Luren answered all of Yang Zhao's questions. They exchanged names, and the man said his last name was Zhang. Through this question and answer, Yang Zhao roughly understood the situation of Fu. Fu is a sect handed down from ancient times, with a history of thousands of years. Although the rise and fall of sects is inevitable, the Taoist tradition has continued and has never been cut off. Even in the modern times, when the external Taoists are hidden, Fu is still there and has a great reputation. The main reason is that Fu has a sect guarding magic weapon, Mu. Yang Zhao's destination for this trip to Fu to form the elixir is Mu. Mu? The tomb and the cemetery? Yes, it is said that it was made by the founder of Fu to bury his son who died young. How can he have such a good ancestor that he can guarantee the survival of the Taoist tradition by leaving a magic weapon? Hearing Zhang Luren sigh, Yang Zhao couldn't help but think of the Taoist tablet hanging around his neck. Speaking of which, the Taoist tablet on his neck is also a sect guarding magic weapon, and I don't know who left it. The members of Fu all live in a place higher than Shuncheng. There is their traditional hidden formation to protect the sect, which ordinary people cannot see or enter. Why is this small town called Shun? The plaque is written in a rather sloppy way. How can it not be sloppy? This is a shame. Zhang Luren looked around and leaned close to Yang Zhao to lower his voice. This Shun is for the Imperial Court. The Imperial Court directly forced Fu to bow down. Otherwise, how could the Imperial Court have the Fu token? Yang Zhao's eyes lit up when she heard this. She loved to hear this kind of gossip in the world of cultivation. Was the fight not fierce at that time? How would I know? However, according to rumors, the island was twice as big as it is now at the beginning. Looking at Zhang Luren's fluttering eyebrows and excited eyes, Yang Zhao understood immediately. No wonder. Yang Zhao said with a guilty conscience. Then people like me who got the token from the imperial court should be discriminated against, right? She took out a handful of candies from her bosom and wanted to share a few with Zhang Luren. When Zhang Luren heard that Yang Zhao had the Shianfu order, he couldn't help but look at her with a new eye. To be able to get the Shianfu order from the court, one must have connections in the court. Most of the people on the island were like him, who went to Shianfu on their own to seek opportunities. Those who had the Shianfu order had already left after forming the elixir, so who would stay in Shuncheng? He didn't have much interest in candy, but the colorful candy Yang Zhao took out looked so good, so he didn't hesitate to take a handful. Who dares to discriminate? The word shun is still outside. Besides, if they have the ability to discriminate, they won't deal with us juniors. If they deal with us, they are also juniors, so who dares to look down on us? After saying that, he sneakily glanced at Shenroi and the other three who followed behind him. Besides, your elders are following us, who is so blind to make you angry? There was no way to talk about this topic anymore, so Yang Zhao pointed to the tall tower in the city. The tower occupies a large area. What is it for? Alas. Zhang Luren sighed. That place is a gladiatorial arena. If you want to get in, you either have to have money or you have to fight your way in. People like me who don't have much money and can't fight their way in are least welcome there. Yang Zhao's eyes lit up again. Why? Isn't it said that there are usually only 200 or 300 people in this city and 200 or 300 people can still fight? You know, although Shuncheng is not big, but if 200 or 300 people are scattered in this city, then this city is no different from a ghost town. How can you still have the passion to fight if you don't meet anyone every day? Hey, at first, the disciples of Shianfu wanted to come out for some experience. There were only a dozen disciples in a sect in Shianfu, and they couldn't compete with each other, so they set up a competition arena in Shuncheng and put some prizes. We outsiders were all here to accompany the young master to study. Over the years, coming to Shianfu to compete in the competition has become a tradition. At the same time, the rules have changed again and again. Now we all call the tower Tangshan Tower, because Shianfu will put 3 Shianfu orders in the tower every year for the 3 people with the best grades. Some people with a sharp mind set up gambling games in it, and even spend a huge price to buy Shianfu orders. Yang Zhao understood the rest of the words without saying anything. Looking at the largest number of medical clinics and pharmacies, she also sighed. Afterwards, this passerby led Yang Zhao and his group to the place where they rented a house and waved his hand and left. This is a 2-story building that doesn't look big. When you enter the first floor, you can see 2 maps hanging in the house. One is the house distribution map of Shuncheng, and the other is the land distribution map of the island. Both houses and land can be rented. Yang Zhao spent some money to rent a small courtyard with 2 entrances. The house was fully equipped with tables, chairs, and benches. Yang Zhao also bought several sets of daily necessities from them. Chapter 434, Invitation. Before leaving, Yang Zhao asked the person in charge of renting the house about the heavenly tomb. Oh, Daoist friend, you came at an unfortunate time. The heavenly tomb always opens a crack at the beginning of the month for people to enter. It was just closed a few days ago. The person who contacted Yang Zhao to rent the house was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s. He had a face full of flesh, a strong body, a pair of small eyes, and a smile, giving people a very kind feeling. Although he was talking to Yang Zhao, his attention was completely focused on the 3 old men, Shenroi, who were sitting on the side drinking tea. But Daoist friend, don't worry. You have the heavenly mansion order. Soon, a senior brother from the sect will contact you to discuss entering the tomb. This sounded awkward. Yang Zhao forced a smile and said goodbye to the other party. Led by a young apprentice, the group arrived at the courtyard they had just rented. This was a small courtyard with 2 entrances. As soon as you entered the door, you could see weeds all over the courtyard. Even the roofs and walls of the houses were covered with lush weeds. Although the houses were very neat and there was no sign of collapse, it was difficult to conceal the atmosphere of decay. No one has lived in this yard for a long time, and it looks a bit rundown, but don't worry senior, this house is definitely a good house. The young apprentice said this, but his hands were not idle either. He skillfully pinched his fingers and chanted a spell. A cold wind blew all over the yard, and within a few breaths, all the weeds were covered with ice. Then, these weeds broke from the roots, and were blown by the wind, and piled in a corner. Look, not bad. The young apprentice looked only about 14 or 15 years old, with baby fat on his face, and was half a head shorter than Yang Zhao. Looking at the proud eyes of the young apprentice, Yang Zhao couldn't help but praise him. My friend, you performed this magic beautifully, and you will definitely have a smooth career in the future. This sentence made the young apprentice blush with shyness. He hurriedly bowed and said goodbye to Yang Zhao and the others, and then ran away. The next cleaning work was naturally taken over by Yang Zhao, who couldn't trouble the three seniors including Shen Ruoyu. That afternoon, a disciple from Xianfu came to invite Yang Zhao and the others in person. My master, Master Lu, has learned that 3 seniors are coming to Xianfu, so he has prepared a banquet at Le Shifu, inviting you all to come at noon 3 days later, to discuss the matter of entering the tomb. Yang Zhao took the invitation and handed it to Shen Ruoyu, who flipped it open and looked at it, then nodded. Okay, go back and tell your master that we will go on time. The disciple bowed deeply and left the yard. It seems we are early. Shen Ruoyu made a set of tea tables and chairs in the yard with clay and stone, and Luan Chuangsheng and Feng from Ligun Valley sat on them again to drink tea. Alas, although I have heard of Xianfu, I have never been here, and I don't know the rules of Xianfu. Feng from Ligun Valley laughed again after hearing what Luan Chuangsheng said. Who hasn't been here? I've never been here either. I've only heard of the glory of Xianfu as a 1,000-year-old sect. I wanted to come when I was in the foundation building stage, but I forgot about it when I was busy. When I remembered it again, I had already formed a pill, so I was embarrassed to come to Xianfu to join in the fun. Shen Ruoyu stuffed the invitation to Yang Zhao. Wulian Xianzhen, I want to take Yang Zhao to the Tangshan Tower to broaden his horizons. Do you two want to go? Feng Yaozhe and Luan Chuangsheng looked at each other and shook their heads. We too won't go. The juniors in the foundation building stage can't make much noise, and the noise inside is annoying. Chapter 435. Entering the tower. The legendary Tower of Babel actually doesn't have a definite name. The closer Yang Zhao got to the tower, the more he realized that it was a huge structure. As he got closer, he realized that the tower was not made of wood or stone as he thought, but a metal structure. The metal on the outside of the tower was frosted and looked particularly heavy in the sun. How heavy is this? And it wasn't just the metal structure that surprised Yang Zhao. The newness of the tower was also astonishing. Simply put, there was no trace of wind and rain. The tower was brand new, as if it had been cast yesterday, and it also looked like someone wiped the outside of the tower every day. This was very unreasonable. Who would be crazy enough to wipe the exterior of their house every day? Because this is not a building, but a magic weapon. Compared to Yang Zhao, Shen Ruoyu was more familiar with the things in the world of cultivation. This tower is obviously a large magic weapon that traps people. He pointed to a protruding tower button on the tower. Look, each layer of the tower button can be used to arrange a person to control the formation inside the tower. Yang Zhao looked up and saw the large copper button, which was as big as 2 human heads. In her consciousness, this kind of magic weapon is either the exquisite pagoda in the hands of Li Xian Wang, which is used to beat children. A father can educate his naughty children alone. In other words, no other helpers are needed. Or it is a demon suppressing tower, which is more like a higher standard prison cell. The rows of large copper buttons outside the Xianfu tower clearly told Yang Zhao that there are many ways to play with magic weapons. Master, can I fly up and touch it? What is there to touch? You, a junior in the foundation building period, touch anything casually. Be careful of being attacked by the tower. Shen Ruoyu glanced over, and Yang Zhao silently retracted his claws and followed the master into the tower silently. As soon as he entered the tower, the lively sound waves inside directly hit Yang Zhao's face. Compared with the ghost town outside, this place gives people a feeling of changing time and space in one step, and people can't tell where they are for a while. The shouts, curses, sounds of weapons colliding, sounds of spells exploding in the air, and screams of people were all mixed together. The noisy sounds with a huge flow of information impacted Yang Zhao's ears, making people upset but also excited. Yang Zhao rubbed her ears and adjusted herself to it before carefully looking at the world inside the tower. The space inside the tower was as large as she expected, large enough to hold several football games at the same time. But such a large place gave people a very depressing feeling. The rest of the tower was dim, and only the center of the tower was bright. And that layer of light was not a lamp or candle, but was flying around like a small insect. Yang Zhao looked carefully and found that the light was the flow of layers of runes. The warring parties were trapped in the runes, and outside the runes were people shouting. Looking up, 5 or 6 meters above the ground, a huge metal platform was floating in the air. This platform was not up or down, and it was not hanging left or right. The entire platform was at least more than 30 meters away from the surrounding walls, and it looked lonely. Yang Zhao looked around, but no one was paying attention to him. He was ready to move. Master, I'll fly up and take a look. This time Shenryu didn't stop him. Go ahead, be careful. Thank you, Master. Chapter 436. Yang Zhao flew up slowly along the edge of the big metal plate, despite the annoying noise. Just after passing the big metal plate, he looked up and saw another big metal plate floating above, but this building plate was a circle smaller than the one below. Yang Zhao gradually had a plan in his mind and flew a short distance on the internet, confirming his thoughts. This tower-shaped magic weapon is really not cast according to the specifications of a building. This is a pure tower-shaped metal cover with no partition in the middle, and there are 9 big metal plates floating in the tower, arranged from large to small. The largest metal plate is the bottom layer, which is as big as 2.5 football fields, and the smallest one is the top one with a diameter of more than 10 meters. The metal plates are not connected to each other, neither up nor down, and they do not touch the 4 walls of the tower. There is no staircase or anything like that. Yang Zhao doubted whether the dozens of tons of things would fall down and kill a bunch of people. How did these big plates float up? So this tower is not more than 20 floors as she saw from the outside, but only 10 floors. If there were people fighting on the big metal plate, a layer of floating runes would light up, and if there was no one, it would be pitch black. Groups of people watching the fun, making bets, and recommending themselves as military advisors were all floating in the darkness outside the big metal disc, making noises. Pairs of eyes were staring at the 2 people fighting inside the disc, with an excited and bloodthirsty light. Yang Zhao was a little upset. Her whole body was hot, but her back was cold. She always felt that something was wrong here, but she couldn't tell what it was. Is it a ghost? Yang Zhao muttered secretly and began to descend in the shouting of kill him. Smash his head and let me taste his brains. Suddenly, she had a flash of inspiration in her mind, and her figure stopped in midair. The passerby named Zhang clearly said that there were only 200 or 300 people in Shunsheng. Although he said that more people came to the island recently, would there be so many more? Yang Zhao's eyes were darting around uncontrollably, and he estimated the number silently in his heart. After a few seconds, he came up with a number. There were at least 8,000 people shouting in this big tower. 300 vs 8,000. Is this just a little more? Is there going to be a big fair in Xianfu? Otherwise, why would so many people come? Maybe this is the legendary exchange conference of the cultivation world? After all kinds of novels follow this routine. Thinking about it, Yang Zhao chuckled and began to miss the days when she stayed up late to read novels in college. With a smile, she continued to descend, and at this moment, she heard an old voice from afar. Hey, little girl, are you new here? Do you want information about this Babel Tower? Just buy me a cup of tea for 2 taels of silver. Yang Zhao was startled, stopped, turned around and saw an old man who couldn't see what color clothes he was wearing, smiling and waving at Yang Zhao. She looked around and found that there was no one around and pointed her index finger at her nose in confusion. Old senior, are you calling me? Of course it's you, little girl. I know you're new here. Do you want to challenge and fight for the Xianfu order? The old man smiled and took 2 steps forward to leave the darkness. The light of the rune shone on him, and Yang Zhao could see that the old man was wearing a maroon suit. I have been in this tower for many years, and I know all the experts in building the foundation who have won the Cheyenne order. You pay me 2 taels of silver and buy me a cup of tea. I will help you avoid detours. How about that? It turned out that this was an information dealer who came up to solicit business because of her veil. Yang Zhao understood. Old senior, you don't know that I'm relatively poor. I'm afraid I can't afford the 2 taels of silver. I'm really sorry for you. She cupped her hands and tried to fall down again with her spiritual power. Hey, kid, don't go. 2 taels of silver can give you a better chance to get the Cheyenne order. This dispute will never be a disadvantage, no matter where it is in the world. The old man got anxious when he heard this and stepped in front of Yang Zhao. Besides, you, a foundation establishment cultivator, said that you don't have 2 taels of silver. Are you kidding? Aren't you trying to slap me in the face? Yang Zhao could only stop falling and blinked when the old man blocked her. Yes, a foundation establishment cultivator couldn't get 2 taels of silver, which sounded like a trick. But the key is that Yang Zhao has the Cheyenne order herself, so she doesn't have to fight to the death in this tower to fight for another Cheyenne order. Even if this Cheyenne order is very valuable, it's not worth it. If Yang Zhao wanted to, she would be a rich woman with several thousand taels of silver every minute. I'm sorry for being rude. This is my first time to Cheyenne Island and I don't know the rules. I hope you can forgive me. Yang Zhao took out 2 100-gram bank silver bars from his arms and handed them over respectfully. This money is for you to have some tea. My teacher and I are waiting for me downstairs, so I can't chat with you for long. Just spend money to buy some peace and quiet. Can you fight with others when you are in someone else's territory? Besides, Yang Zhao was panicking and wanted to go back to Shenryu. The old man took the silver, weighed it, and said with a smile, "Oh, you are a man who doesn't lack money. You are really generous. You gave me 4 or 5 taels of silver." But halfway through his words, the smile on his face faded, and he looked at Yang Zhao with cold eyes. "Why did you take out the silver, but not buy information from me? Do you think I'm a bandit who robs people on the road?" Chapter 437. How should Yang Zhao respond to this? Yang Zhao looked for a way to escape, and said modestly, "I'm young and rude to you. Actually, I'm quite interested in the information of those people you mentioned, but I'm afraid that my elders are waiting anxiously, so I want to find him quickly to avoid being scolded by him. First admit the mistake, then say that I have someone behind me in this tower, and use both soft and hard tactics. I apologize to you here." Yang Zhao bowed deeply, trying to give enough face. But the old man was indifferent to Yang Zhao's words, and his eyes even became colder. What you said is like I'm bullying the weak. I won't bully you. You gave me so much silver, so I will do business with so much silver, and I will never take advantage of you." As he said that, he didn't know where he took out a piece of paper and handed it to Yang Zhao. "Here, take a look. It's definitely worth the money." Yang Zhao felt her teeth itching. She didn't know how she had attracted so much attention that the old man refused to listen. Moreover, she could already feel that many people around her were staring at her, and even her shouting became weaker. This situation made Yang Zhao feel like she was sitting on pins and needles. In order to solve this matter quickly, she could only take the paper. At first glance, Yang Zhao was a little confused because the paper was blank, without a single word on it. But Yang Zhao didn't care whether it was blank or not. "Okay senior, I'll buy this piece of paper." Yang Zhao glanced at it and smiled as she wanted to fold the paper and put it in her arms. The old man opened his mouth to stop her action. "Hey, little girl, who said I want to sell you this piece of paper? There are words on the paper. Look carefully." At this time, in the darkness not far away, someone opened his mouth to talk. "Yes, take a look. Otherwise you would have spent several taels of silver to buy a piece of paper. What a waste." Yang Zhao moved his eyes away, but did not find the person who was talking. The noise around him was still there, as if the person who was talking did not exist. "Oh, I misunderstood. Let me take a look." Yang Zhao was a little nervous. The more she looked at the old man, the less he looked like a good person. As she pondered, she became more defensive. She lowered her head deeply, and a little golden light suddenly appeared in her pupils, and then the golden and red colors quickly covered the entire pupil. Only then did she turn her eyes to the piece of paper in her hand. But when she saw it, Yang Zhao's hand trembled, and she almost threw the paper away. It turned out that what he held in his hand was not paper, but a piece of skin with dry hair and black blood stains. A faint sticky and fishy smell reached Yang Zhao's nose. As for the words the old man said, there were some, but not many. Yang Zhao roughly counted them, and there were only a dozen or so. But the characters were not honest either. They were like maggots crawling on the skin, making people feel sick and horrified. The key point was that these characters were not the official characters of the Great Zhao dynasty, which meant that Yang Zhao did not recognize them at all. The direction of this story is getting more and more like strange stories from a Chinese studio. Yang Zhao smiled bitterly in her heart. She just came out to see the world. How could she encounter such a thing? She lowered her head and pretended to study carefully, asking softly, "Senior, you also know that this is my first time here, and I don't know the rules of doing business here. How about you tell me a few words?" The old man's eyes darkened, a hint of sneer spread across his face, and his voice was a bit bewitching. "Oh, what's there to not understand? It's written so clearly above. You pay the money, and I will cast a defensive spell on you that can resist the attack of the golden elixir, giving you a chance to fight back and turn the tide of the battle." As he spoke, the bewitching meaning in the old man's voice became stronger. Even if your opponent is very strong, this spell will at least buy you some time to surrender. Once you surrender, the opponent will stop immediately, which is equivalent to saving your life. You are also a cultivator in the foundation establishment stage. You should know that this kind of spell that can save a life in the outside world, let alone spending a few taels of silver, even if you ask for a favor, there may not be anyone willing to set it up for you. It is because those who fight in this tower are too ruthless and suffer too many casualties that Fu stepped in, so we do this business. Chapter 438, Doing Business. Yang Zhao lowered his head cautiously, trying to find useful information from the old man's words. First of all, from the old man's voice, he should not be from Fu, but he has a relationship with Fu, and the relationship is not shallow. Otherwise, why would Fu trap them in the tower to do business? Yang Zhao couldn't find out what the old man's cultivation was, but he could still feel the faint pressure. To be honest, with his cultivation, it is unreasonable to put a few taels of silver in any place in the cultivation world. But then again, is what the other party said true? Of course, there is a great possibility that it is false. She can only infer one thing, that is, this old man caught a stranger and wanted to get people in, and it was definitely not for the few taels of silver. At this time, even if Yang Zhao knew that this person had bad intentions, she didn't dare to be reckless because of his cultivation. It's better to resolve this matter peacefully. Senior, to tell you the truth, I have the Fu order in my hand. Yang Zhao raised her head, and her eyes, which had been hidden in golden red, suddenly widened, and then the two colors returned in an instant to fill the entire pupil. She looked at the scene in front of her with a tingling scalp, and cold sweat came down her back. Her trembling lips could not continue to say the next word. What old man was in front of her? It was a beast soul that was 3 or 4 meters tall, covered in blood and illusory, with only half of its head left. Usually it is a ghost. Damn it, it is really a ghost in broad daylight. And not only this old man is a ghost, but in the darkness, all the ghosts are crowded together. There are human beings and beasts. Beasts are divided into those in the sea, those in the sky, those with wings and fins. Of course, these ghosts also have a common feature, that is, their thoughts are quite miserable. They are all taken individually, and they cannot be posted on the internet. They must be censored on a large scale. In short, there are all kinds of ghosts, all kinds of misery. This scene obviously updated Yang Zhao's general concept of ghosts. Hey, little girl, your eyes are so beautiful. This was like a thunder, awakening Yang Zhao, who was trapped in a nightmare. Yang Zhao turned his head stiffly and found that it was the same everywhere else. In the dark place, where the light could not reach, there were all ghosts of all sizes with miserable death. In a trance, Yang Zhao thought of the words of the passerby named Zhang who led them. "This is your first time here, right? Hey, Shunsheng has a lot more people these days. In the past, there were only 200 or 300 people living in the whole city. It was really possible to sit down and drink a few cups with a ghost. Meeting a ghost and sitting down and drinking a few cups with him." Yang Zhao didn't care at the time, thinking that it was just an exaggerated complaint from Zhang. But who knew that this was actually a true description? Really drinking a few cups with a ghost? Yang Zhao swallowed silently. The permanent population of 200 or 300 people, even if there are many more people these days, but looking at the state of the ghost town outside, it is known that there will not be many more people. Even if the number of living people increases tenfold, there are at least several thousand ghosts in this tower. Did we poke a ghost nest at once? Heavenly tomb. Don't be so realistic, right? Yang Zhao's soul hasn't come back yet, and the ghosts who secretly pay attention to Yang Zhao began to whisper. "Can this little girl see us? No way. She, a little cultivator in the Foundation building period, can see through our true bodies? Wouldn't that be a big joke?" But looking at the little girl's expression, I can't tell that she is so panicked that her soul has fallen. Besides, look at her eyes. You can tell at a glance that it is a good thing. The bloody smell is so strong. It looks delicious. Don't say it. It's really tempting. Haha, senior, you are joking. I still want to keep these eyes. I'm afraid I can't let you taste them. Yang Zhao came back to his senses, dispersed the incense to cast his body, and his eyes slowly returned to normal. It's okay. It's okay. Isn't it just a ghost? What's there to be afraid of? Seeing Master Shenryu every day, she should be desensitized. Yang Zhao Qiang forced a smile and held his heart, which was aching from the collision of his ribs, trying to pretend that nothing had happened. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 439. Grandmaster, help. A loud roar was pushed by spiritual power and instantly resounded throughout the Tangshan Tower. In order to have a deterrent effect, Yang Zhao's words contained a foreign language, fearing that the other party would not understand and would be less afraid if he shouted in Chinese. With this roar, the annoying noise in the entire tower seemed to be paused by someone. It stopped for a moment, and then a louder noise surged out like a tsunami. Ha 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 ha, help. Ha 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 ha, there is still a baby who hasn't taken off the milk. You still call me Grandmaster, why not call me Mom? Ha 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 ha, which idiot scared the child? Hurry up and take the milk to comfort him. I said that the cultivation world is now one generation worse than the next. You still don't believe it? How about it? Today I will let you learn something new. The old man opposite Yang Zhao had a very gloomy face, and he stretched out his hand to grab her, scaring Yang Zhao so much that she flew backwards. You little girl, don't bluff. No cultivators above the golden core level will enter the tower today. Before he finished speaking, a silver lightning bolt more than 5 meters wide exploded in the tower. The huge thunder made Yang Zhao's ears buzz, but it did not stop Yang Zhao from shouting again to report the location to Shenryu. Grandmaster, there are ghosts here. The sound was broken, and the shrill voice frightened everyone and suppressed the noisy voice in the tower again. Wulian Xianzhen, you are bullying the weak. Have you asked me what I think? Shenryu stepped in front of Yang Zhao, raised his sword with 2 fingers, and flicked it lightly. A small flash of lightning hit the old man's face, forcing him back a few steps. Grandmaster, there are so many ghosts in this tower. Seeing Shenryu's back, Yang Zhao almost cried. He stuffed the unknown leather in his hand into Shenryu's hand, then summoned a small water ball and began to wash his hands frantically, mumbling and complaining while writing. There should be several thousand, and it seems that they all died tragically. This old man used this thing to scare me, but he has no good intentions. Fortunately, she reacted to the stress and spoke Chinese at this time. The old man and the ghosts in the tower couldn't understand. Otherwise, the faces of these unknown ghosts would definitely be more ferocious. Shenroi weighed the thing in his hand. Using such a thing to charm the mind, you really don't care about your reputation. He raised his hand and threw the piece of leather to the old man opposite. Come on, don't bully the young ones, talk to me if you have anything to say. The old man took the unknown leather with his backhand. No wonder I didn't notice. It turns out you are also a ghost. I thought some unlucky guy woke up, but it turns out you came from outside. He looked Shenroi up and down and smiled. I'm older than this little girl, and my cultivation is higher than this little girl. How could I do something to oppress her? I want to do a good business for her. Yang Zhao was not happy when he heard this. Grandmaster, this guy is bad. He stopped me from leaving. I said I don't want to fight in the ring, but he still insisted on casting spells on me. Force buying and selling is definitely not a good thing. She muttered a lot. Although the old man opposite could not understand, he knew that what she said was not a good thing. Little girl, you are not afraid of trouble just to watch the fun, right? Do you have to make me and your grandmaster fight here? Chapter 440. At this time, there was no fighting or shouting in the tower. You could hear a pin drop in the whole tower, and even if someone coughed, it would be a bit deafening. Of course, it could also be caused by the echo in the tower. But no matter what, it seemed that everyone's eyes were focused on the two ghosts, Shenroi and the old man, with eager eyes, and they were fighting now. Yang Zhao was also aggrieved. She had just seen a lot of ghosts, and she was so scared that her front and back lapels were wet with sweat. When Lang Bing was extremely frightened, she would talk a lot more, and she needed to vent her panic by saying more words. She couldn't control it at all. Scolding the child in front of his parents. It seems that you really don't take me seriously. Shenroi raised two fingers, and the tips of his fingers flashed with lightning. He was ready to fight if he disagreed with anything. The old man hadn't said anything yet, and a group of onlookers behind him began to gather together and whisper. This is a matter of beating the younger and then the older. I haven't encountered such a thing for hundreds of years since I died. Today I'm really enlightened. Don't talk about you. I'm different. I have never encountered such a thing when I was alive. At that time, whoever saw me was not honest. Not to mention signing a contract for a few taels of silver. Even if it was just writing one of his arms, no one dared to say anything. Alas, the old man also sighed quietly. That's right. What bad thoughts can I have? I'm trapped in this tower without seeing the sky every day. What can I do? Even killing a person requires Shianfu, and even scaring a junior can involve an old man. Shenroi's eyes stood up, raised two fingers, and began to chant. Subtle vacuum. The old man was also a little annoyed. Hey, why doesn't this guy listen to what others say, and just wants to start a fight? Shinxiao Zhaogang. I say, you, don't think I'm afraid of you, just because you know thunder magic. I'm a ghost, and you're also a ghost. I'm afraid of being struck by thunder, but you're not afraid of being struck by thunder? Can you talk properly? Thunder. Hey, that's enough. Hey, I just want some blood, right? Is it necessary to make such a big fuss? Humph. Shenroi snorted coldly and put down his hand. What do you want blood for? The old man frowned and looked at the layer of silver light and dark clouds gathered at the top of the tower above, and his eyes looked at Shenroi more seriously. Can't you see this? These young people are fighting to the death in the tower, who won't get hurt. He can't drink the blood that flows out, so he can just give us a taste. Hearing this, Yang Zhao was afraid that his master would be deceived in this regard, so he hid behind Shenroi and whispered in a foreign language. He didn't say that just now. He used that stinking leather to scare me. He also fooled me by saying that I could have him cast a life-saving defensive spell on me for a few taels of silver, but he didn't say anything about blood or not. And that leather, I was dizzy when I saw it, and the words on the leather would shrivel up by themselves. Thinking of this, Yang Zhao couldn't help but find a small water ball to continue washing her hands. No matter how she washed, she felt an unpleasant fishy smell on her hands. Hey, little girl, when our elders are talking, can you, a junior, stop interrupting? Yang Zhao was not to be outdone. She now had a backer, and she looked like a little bit of a villain. Then I'm the one who's scared. If I don't tell the truth, are you waiting for you to lie to my master with empty words? I've told you so many times that I don't fight in a ring. I don't fight in a ring, but you don't listen. You force consumption. You force buying and selling. You don't abide by the voluntary buying and selling rules of the market. You are breaking the law. Do you know? She couldn't control her mouth this time. Shenryu, who was standing in front of Yang Zhao, couldn't help but smile. Who said you don't fight in a ring? Why am I? Yang Zhao, who was talking nonsense, couldn't stop talking, and the whole person was stunned like a goose. No, master, you have senile dementia. Yang Zhao was so angry that he slapped himself on the mouth. You are a noble man who forgets things easily. I have the Cheyenne for order, so I don't need to fight in a ring. Chapter 441. The quarrel is over. Shenryu ignored Yang Zhao, who was confused at the back, and looked at the old man opposite coldly. What's the matter with that leather? The old man took out the paper from somewhere again, shook his hand, and the paper instantly turned into a piece of leather with black bloodstains and dry hair, and strange words were still everywhere on the leather. He handed the leather to Shenryu. There are words on it, you can see for yourself. I'm not lying at all. Shenryu glanced at it, and didn't take it at all. I don't recognize the words on it. No, how can I not recognize it? How can I not recognize it? This is Shulingyu, a Shulin clan. As he spoke, the old man's voice became smaller, and the last words turned around in his mouth for several times, and he couldn't spit them out. Then, he looked at Shenryu viciously, and his tone was tinged with impatience. Alright, I'll just scare this little girl. She won't suffer any loss. Why are you so angry? He threw the skin away, and looked at the ghosts behind him who were watching the fun, and didn't mind the age, and started to coax them. Disperse, disperse, disperse. What are you looking at? Those who should fight should fight. Those who should fight desperately should fight. Those who should gamble should bet money quickly. Look at what I'm doing. He said without looking back, turned around and disappeared into the darkness. As soon as the old man disappeared, the whole tower suddenly became lively, and all kinds of unsightly voices echoed in the tower one after another. Oh, you're leaving now. I thought you two were going to fight on the ring. That's right, I've set up the bet, and someone has already placed the bet, and you're showing us this? I'm tired of watching these mediocre skills of the foundation building period every day, and I thought today I could have some fun and reminisce about the past, but who knew that there was actually one who was a coward? It's really damn bad luck. Yang Zhao was stunned by this change. Master, he ran away. No, just now who provoked him? Why is he so angry? You know, when this old man faced Shenryu's thunder method just now, although he said he was soft-hearted, he was still smiling. But looking at his angry attitude, Yang Zhao really didn't know which sentence touched him. Shenryu saw a trace of sympathy in the dark eyes. Let's go down. He didn't want to be treated as a monkey for people to watch, so he took Yang Zhao and went down the tower. Yang Zhao glanced around with some fear and followed closely behind Shenryu less than 1 meter away, just for a sense of security. If it weren't for the difference between humans and ghosts, Yang Zhao wanted to hug Shenryu's arm. After landing on the ground, Yang Zhao looked at the bright door behind her and stomped on the solid floor under her feet. She felt a little more confident in her heart. The distance between her and Master Shenryu increased from 1 meter to 1 meter and 1. Once she felt confident, Yang Zhao began to be curious about the old man. Yes, what happened to that old man just now? The fight on the ring started again. Shenryu watched with interest and didn't want to pay attention to Yang Zhao. The less Shenryu said, the more interested Yang Zhao became. It was like a little cat's paw was constantly fiddling with her heart, and she felt a little scratchy. That Grandmaster, is it because the tower is someone else's territory and it's hard to talk? How about we go out and talk later? Shenryu took out 2 big silver conches from somewhere. If you have nothing to do, why don't you take a closer look at the ring? You know, you will be on the ring tomorrow. If Shenryu hadn't mentioned it, Yang Zhao would have wanted to fool around with this matter. Grandmaster, I really will. Shenryu slowly turned the silver conch. How could it be false? Your current cultivation is the result of the 3 of us forcing you to grow. Your foundation is doomed to be unstable, don't you know that? If the foundation is unstable, you need to put a lot of effort to consolidate it. Otherwise, who would dare to live in such a house? Your foundation is unstable now, so you need to consolidate it. Yang Zhao looked at the ring for a while and inevitably showed some fear in his eyes. The reason is also very simple. A cultivator like Yang Zhao, who graduated from a 1-month crash course, is not the same as someone who has stayed in the foundation building stage for several years and relied on his own efforts to reach the threshold of the Dan formation stage. Don't look at the ghosts in the tower. They all say that those who fight in the ring are mediocre and can't be on the big stage. But it depends on who they are facing. In Yang Zhao's opinion, any of the people who fight in the 10 rings above and below are not something she can shake. They have real kung fu that has been cultivated over time. The 2 people on the ring in front of them, because the venue is not large for cultivators, the 2 people are fighting in a small area. Every gesture left an after image. Various spells, magic, and instruments could attack the opponent from unexpected ways and angles. Many inconspicuous tricks could bring a string of blood to the opponent and knock the enemy off the stage. In the arena, it is important to be merciless and show no mercy. The main focus is on reality. Yang Zhao was a little nervous. He didn't even dare to blink when watching the arena, for fear of missing something. Even so, Yang Zhao's eyes were not enough. In front of others, saying that Yang Zhao was a child was flattering her. Putting myself into it, cold sweat broke out all of a sudden. Grandmaster, if you let me go up, the chances of winning are 30-70. They have 3 punches, and I have 7. Yang Zhao's tone was inevitably coquettish. Grandmaster, what kind of disciple is a good disciple? It must be a living disciple. The dead can only occupy a place and slowly rot, but the living disciples can run, jump and eat by themselves. How cute. There is no choice about this matter. The ring, you have to go up or not. I throw it to you, and you have to go up. Shenroi looked at the ring dimly. Don't you think that the reason why we came a few days later is that God couldn't stand it, so you have time to go to the ring to consolidate your foundation? How can this be related to metaphysics? Facing Shenroi's firm attitude, Yang Zhao did not dare to refute loudly, but only dared to whisper behind him. I'm not much stronger than the sandbag on the ring, and the scars that have just faded will be added again. All my efforts are in vain. But no matter what, going to the ring is settled. Although Yang Zhao has complaints in her heart, she also knows that Shenroi is doing it for her good. Although her attitude is a bit tough, her heart is definitely good, and the path she points to is definitely correct. Besides, no one is your parent, and they have to be careful to take care of your emotions. Yang Zhao knew, since he went to school, that if someone could give you some advice, it would be a favor. Moreover, Shenroi's guidance was like escorting you, which was a good thing that others could not ask for, no matter how much money they raised. Chapter 442, Dinner. Since he was destined to go on the ring, Yang Zhao would not just sit there and wait. Relying on Shenroi being by his side, Yang Zhao plucked up his courage and started a conversation with a red-dressed lady who was running a gambling stall nearby. After a while, he took out some silver to buy a large stack of paper and ran behind Shenroi. As for whether the red-dressed lady was a human, a ghost, or a monster, Yang Zhao did not dare to look at her or think about it. She was afraid that she would be blind and scare her courage back with just one look. She was already talking incoherently, but it was Master Shenroi who didn't care. If she was scared again, Yang Zhao would really not be able to control her gossiping mouth. Being beaten and punished would be a small matter, but making Shenroi angry would be a big deal. No wonder gambling and drug-related crimes are being cracked down by the country. This is really shady. There are more than 170 sheets of paper in this stack. Yang Zhao spent more than 50 taels of silver. A well-off family of 5 in the city can live comfortably for a year and a half, which is the monthly salary of a cultivator in the early stage of foundation building. But then again, this thing is like Zhao Yu fighting Huang Ge, one willing to fight, and the other willing to be beaten. Even if Yang Zhao scolded her for being shady, she still willingly paid the silver. Each sheet of paper here has a rough profile of a cultivator who has been on the ring. At the top of the paper is a relatively distinctive headshot. from the spells and runes that this cultivator is good at, to the types of magic tools and spiritual objects that he often uses, to some of their major behavioral habits, this paper has it all. The entire Shunqing has a permanent population of only 200 or 300, and this stack of information accounts for most of the population, which can be called comprehensive. Although Yang Zhao also knows that the information on it must be relatively one-sided, and it may even be deliberately displayed by those cultivators to mislead others. But then again, it is better to have it than not. After all, many people have been fighting in this ring for 1 or 2 years, and there are not a few who have been fighting for 5 or 6 years. There are very few people who can hide their strength for such a long time. They are all fighting for the opportunity to form a pill, and wasting time is wasting their own lives. Yang Zhao spent 50 taels of silver to buy a time to investigate the information of the players. The noise around him gradually rose, and Yang Zhao couldn't help but raise his voice. Master, the proprietress who sold me the information just now gave me an extra piece of information, because I was happy to pay for it. Master, are you interested? Yang Zhao's big eyes were bright, staring at Shenroi without blinking, with an expression that wanted to gather people to eat melons. Shenroi looked back at Yang Zhao helplessly. In the era he lived in, women of Yang Zhao's age would have to be 7 or 8 years old. In another 7 or 8 years, she could have grandchildren. How could there be someone as jumpy as Yang Zhao? Yang Zhao looked at Shenroi's expression, and he laughed embarrassedly, and patted his mouth lightly. I didn't mean to tease you, master. It's just that you didn't listen to me today. Then he couldn't help but approach Shenroi mysteriously, and lowered his voice mysteriously. Didn't the passerby named Zhang always say that there were new people on the island? I didn't see anyone, but I saw ghosts all over the tower. As a result, the proprietress said that, although they were cultivators, they were not human cultivators, but feathered people. There were nearly 600 feathered people on the whole island. She laughed again. I was wondering why I didn't see anyone for a long time. It turned out that they were all birds. That's right, birds fly in the sky, live on tree branches, and at the very least, they find a cliff. Who would go shopping in the city? As they chatted, her brain jumped to other things. Hey, master, when I was in Yunshan City, they all classified those birds as sea creatures. How come they became feathered people when they came to Xianfu? Shenroi looked at the ring indifferently. Even if the surroundings were noisy, his voice could be clearly heard by Yang Zhao. Because Xianfu was originally built in the mainland, but now it has been broken into an isolated island in the sea. There are naturally no sea tribes on the land, and they are all called the Feather Tribe. Of course, it may also be that these ghosts on the island cannot leave the tower. After a long time, the news is blocked, and naturally they will not change their words. Who can still shout and kill them because of their small mistake? Fuck, this is actually in a mainland, a real version of Yugang moving the mountains? Yang Zhao was dumbfounded, and his scalp tingled. You know, Shenroi was talking about the mainland. How can a continent be smashed? Except for the crustal movement of the planet itself, this is an impossible feat for humans today. To give the simplest example, even if all the nuclear weapons in the world are added together, there is no need to think about blowing up a piece of land. Even the smallest peninsula is enough. At most, it is an earthquake caused by the explosion, but it is absolutely unthinkable to blow up the surrounding continents and leave only a mountain. Facing nature, humans have not been able to conquer them. So Yang Zhao can only think of Gong Yishan. Yugong's journey moved heaven and earth, and the Emperor of Heaven sent the 2 sons of the Hercules Kua to help him carry the mountain. It is much more reliable to let the immortal carry a piece of mountain alone and throw it into the sea to make an island than to blow up the continent. Shenroi knew without looking back that Yang Zhao must have looked like he had never seen the world. What about after that? What are those feather tribes doing here? Yang Zhao's eyes, which had been somewhat sluggish, suddenly became energetic again, and her eyes flashed with gossip. They are all here for the banquet. More than 500 out of more than 600 people are here for the banquet. She stopped talking halfway. Shenroi didn't know whether it was fortunate or unfortunate to meet such a naughty person. Why the banquet? Yang Zhao was satisfied with just one question, and she didn't dare to keep him waiting for too long, so she told him honestly. Hehe, it's the old bird in their tribe. It is said that these feather tribes will enter the heavenly tomb of Fu before they die and die there, so the younger generations of those old birds come to have a feast. As he spoke, his voice became lower again, and he muttered to himself, I just found out that the heavenly tomb is not a private cemetery, but a public cemetery in the world of cultivation. This pattern has been opened up. Shenroi was thoughtful after hearing this, and finally murmured half a sentence. No wonder. Ah, master, what did you say? Yang Zhao was listening with his ears perked up, but he didn't hear it all. I didn't say anything about having a feast or not, they were just escorting. There are so many feather tribes on the island now. If you don't have a good mouth and get beaten up, don't ask me to save your face. How is that possible? Impossible. I just have a little stress reaction, and my mouth will definitely be tighter than that clamshell in a while. Chapter 443, Soul Binding. Shenroi watched with great interest on the first floor, while Yang Zhao took the stack of papers and started to jump up and down to identify people in each ring. She flipped through the small papers quickly, and as long as she found the number, she would take a pen to draw a mark on it, and then stare at the fight in the ring, and add a few of her own opinions. In fact, this work did not go too smoothly, because some rings would be fought very quickly, and the two sides might decide the winner within a few moves. Before Yang Zhao found the corresponding information, they left the ring. More than 3 hours of busy work passed, and Yang Zhao had written half of the stack of information in his hand. Because Shenroi was there, Yang Zhao did not encounter any trouble in the tower this time. It's just that many people who met her stared at her like a monkey. In a word, Yang Zhao became famous in the Tower of Babel, and everyone wanted to see what kind of person was the one shouting for help in the tower. Faced with this situation, Yang Zhao was not the kind of thin-skinned person, and she was also afraid of the cats in the dark, so she would not look over there if she could. In terms of action, she implemented the ostrich plan, burying her head in the sand and pretending not to see. Psychologically, it was RQ's spiritual victory method, muddling through. In addition, she had to sort out the information of the opponents she might meet in the future, so she stayed for 3 hours quite comfortably. In the end, she was really hungry, so she came to find Shenroi. Master, you see you are not hungry, and the two doctors are hungry too. I will go back to buy some food for them and taste the specialties of Fu. How about it? When the two came out, the sun had already set in the west, and the fiery red glow illuminated the entire island, and all the vegetation and buildings were covered with a layer of warm colors. After leaving the tower, Yang Zhao mentioned Shulingai's matter again. For no reason. Why is that old man so angry? He can't say it in the tower, but he can say it now. Shenroi walked forward leisurely, with a bit of alienation in his eyebrows. Because the writing is broken, I have traveled in the Great Zhao for 100 years. I'm not proficient in the mainstream writing language of the Great Zhao, but I can write it without any problem. Even for some unknown minor languages, I know a thing or two. You have to know that most of the population of the entire Great Zhao is concentrated in one place. The gathering of people will also lead to the popularization of various languages, but I don't recognize the writing in his hand. The silver conch in his hand slowly turned, and the crisp sound added a bit of comfort to people. Looking at the way he spoke, he seemed very confident. This Shulingai should have been a large language when he was alive, but now I don't recognize it. This shows that the circulation range of Shulingai is too narrow, and it may even be cut off. Civilization depends on the inheritance of writing. Once the writing is broken, it is difficult for the history of the nation to continue. A nation without history will naturally have no land of clan soul. Once the land of clan soul disappears, this nation will no longer have the possibility of rising. How can he not be angry? Yang Zhao was stunned. Just a few simple sentences can extract such a large amount of information? At this moment, she felt like a fool. Not necessarily. Maybe their ethnic group recorded their own history in other languages? Shenroi glanced at Yang Zhao indifferently. If they record their own history in a foreign language, then most of it is not their own history. The two walked slowly, and the cool evening breeze blew, making people very comfortable. Do you know about the 5 barbarians' invasion of China? Yang Zhao rolled his eyes and nodded. I learned a little bit in history books, but I haven't learned about it in detail. If Yang Zhao is not interested in something that will not be used in the college entrance examination, he will not learn about it in detail, even if it is history that has already happened. From Dangai, Zirang, Nanman, Bd Tahu, G, Xianbui, D, Kaang. These ethnic groups once had their own languages and writings, but when they wanted to live a stable life of farming with sleds in their hands, their languages and writings inevitably declined. By the time of Ming Dynasty, there were few people in the world who knew their languages. It was just a few strokes in history books and some traces of stone carvings. Shenroi's words were naturally indifferent. At this time, their clan soul land will naturally merge into our clan soul land. Although it will take a long time, the power of time should not be underestimated. Yang Zhao suddenly had an idea and thought of various local dialects. I know this. The pronunciation and vocabulary of many local languages are copied from other ethnic languages, such as the Balengia in the north. Balengia? Shenroi raised his eyebrows in confusion. Yang Zhao felt a little leaky at the back of his neck. Why was he so talkative? The language of the Manchus, which we northerners often use. Shenroi smiled softly. Don't be so afraid. The change of dynasties has existed since ancient times. It is normal for the descendants of the Zhu family to fail to defend the world and cause their heroes to fight for hegemony. The world belongs to everyone in the world. When the emperor is incompetent and the court has no merit, anyone can compete for it. It has been like this since ancient times. But I'm Chinese, and I'm a barbarian when I retreat. As long as he becomes the emperor, he has no say in this matter. Wow, so generous. If Yang Zhao hadn't been afraid that giving a thumbs up would seem frivolous in front of Shenroi, the elder, she would have wanted to give him a thumbs up, to praise him, no matter what she said. That is to say, although most of the Shuling language may have been lost, some of it has been integrated into the local language. Master, is that what you mean? Shenroi nodded and said, although I don't know Shuling language, there are still many objects named Shuling in the entire cultivation world. Yang Zhao's mind suddenly lit up. For example, Shuling Gaiu. Yes, but this word is the language of the Great Zhao, not Shuling. Shenroi's tone couldn't help but carry a hint of sigh. The two chatted as they walked and strolled back to the gate of the small courtyard where they rented. Yang Zhao sent Shenroi into the courtyard, turned around and began to look for restaurants and food shops. She walked around 2 whole streets before she found a restaurant. But to her disappointment, the dishes of this restaurant were mostly steamed and boiled seafood, and they sold whatever was available and did not accept orders. There was only one waiter in the store, and his attitude towards the guests was neither cold nor indifferent, far from being as warm and hospitable as the waiters in other cities. Those guests are eating today's dishes. You can take care of it, guests. Yang Zhao looked at the dishes on the tables of the few people who were having dinner in the restaurant. The soup was watery and the vegetables were stewed till soft. Only the seafood was better. After all, high-end ingredients could be made delicious with the simplest cooking. But this could not hide the fact that there were not even a few drops of oil in these dishes. Yang Zhao had lived on Black Pearl Island for so long that she no longer had the same desire for seafood as before. She just wanted to eat meat now. The stewed pork belly was mixed with rice. One bite was full of the salty and fragrant taste of oil and meat. She drooled just thinking about it. Looking at the dishes on the table again, she suddenly lost her appetite and couldn't help complaining to the waiter in the store. Do you have the kind of stewed meat with fat in your store? Aren't you afraid that your business will be taken away by others if you sell this stuff? The waiter brother's attitude did not seem like a waiter brother, but more like a host who was inviting people to dinner. Sir, you are joking. There are only a few people in Shuncheng. We opened a food shop in Xianfu just to provide food for those who can't cook, not to make money. Sir, why don't you take a look at the Kigan pills? We have many flavors here. This kind of behavior of being rich and not caring about money is really enviable. But Yang Zhao thought about it. She is also a local tyrant now, and if she said this again, it would be suspected of scolding herself. Is there no restaurant that cooks delicious food? Suddenly, a light bulb went off in her head, and she turned to ask the waiter brother, "Brother, do you know where Leh Food House is?" The waiter brother raised his eyebrows and smiled. I may disappoint you. Although their food house is called this name, it is not a restaurant that does business with the outside world. It only cooks food for the guests of Cheyenne Fu, and you can't buy it with money. This La restaurant is actually the canteen of Cheyenne Fu. Yang Zhao had no choice. She silently calculated in her heart, then give me 10 tables of your restaurant's signature dishes, and a few pots of good wine. 10 tables are not too many for the 3 of them. If Yang Zhao opens his appetite, he can eat 5 tables by himself. Even if Luan Chuangsheng and Feng, the 2 doctors, don't like these dishes, Yang Zhao can eat the remaining 5 tables tomorrow morning, without any waste. By the way, can you deliver the food? Yes, but it costs some money. When the food was delivered, it was already dark. Yang Zhao placed a magic spell in the yard hanging in the air, and began to pour wine, and add dishes to the 3 people sitting there. Yang Zhao stood up first, and took a glass of wine, to thank Shenroi and the other 3 for their care during these days. He took another glass of wine, to thank them for coming to Cheyenne Fu from afar for him. The last glass of wine, he would ask them to take care of him in the next month. The meal lasted until the moon was at its zenith. The guests and hosts were very happy. After the meal, Yang Zhao also used a water ball spell to wash the dishes. There was not even oil or water on the plate, and it was clean after a rinse with water. When it was time to go to bed, Yang Zhao took out the special small box, and summoned 2 little bean men. In the past month, Yang Zhao has used a lot of incense. Although the number of fans has been fixed at 2 million, because she does not update in time, and interacts less with fans, she did not generate too much incense in a short time. Yang Zhao decided to use it sparingly. He changed from using mobile phones to using little bean men to pass on messages, which could save a lot of incense. Anyway, there are people on standby at Guo Fu minimum Kiang 24 hours a day. When Xiao Daoren came out, he thought something urgent had happened, so he jumped up and wanted to check if Yang Zhao was injured. I'm fine now, but the meridian treatment time will be postponed for about a month. Yang Zhao briefly told him about missing the time at Cheyenne Mu, and casually mentioned that he was going to the ring. We should also tell the supervisors at Hesu Island about this matter, so that they don't have any troubles after the time is up. Xiao Daoren nodded after hearing this. I will definitely pass on the message. Don't worry, there won't be any trouble at Hesu Island. But your injury is not healed yet. Why are you going to the ring? Besides, it takes 100 days to heal a broken bone. How can you go to the ring right after recovering from a serious illness? Yang Zhao licked his lips and repeated Shenroi's words. You don't have to worry. My meridians are incomplete. It's just that I can no longer use my spiritual power as I please like before. But the spiritual power in my body is not fake. I can still use it in other ways. At most, it won't be so easy to use. The little bean man was obviously a little dissatisfied with this statement. Going on the ring, a hair's mistake may cause serious injuries, let alone your current situation. It's okay, the master is watching, and he won't let me be in danger. The little bean man was still worried, but didn't continue the topic. Because if he talked about it in depth, it would mean to provoke the relationship between Yang Zhao and Shenroi. How about this? Tomorrow morning, you contact us. We will prepare something for you. Maybe you can use it on the ring. Chapter 444, Armor. At dawn in the morning, Yang Zhao set up her armor in the house. As a result, there was not enough space in the house, so she took 2 little bean figurines to set up the stall in the yard. There were more than 10 sets of armor. With such a big move, it was impossible for others not to notice it. Shenroi's voice came from afar. Where did you get so many armors? Yang Zhao smiled while arranging them. Where else can I get these things? Of course, my family gave them to me. Shenroi walked closer and couldn't help asking. Are they so afraid that you will get hurt? Yang Zhao laughed to herself, and the little bean figurine next to him explained. These armors were prepared by people according to Comrade Yang's height and body shape when Comrade Yang was injured a month ago. We worked overtime to prepare these defensive supplies. The news that Comrade Yang was going to the ring this time was a bit sudden, and our preparations were still not sufficient. The sons of military commanders from wealthy families may not have as complete armor as her when they were in the army. Shenroi stared at the armor on the ground with interest. In my time, all these things on the ground could be sent to the prison. Yang Zhao was a little surprised. She only knew that in ancient times, hiding a certain number of knives and arrows was a crime of treason, but she didn't know that hiding too much armor would also violate the ban. Thinking about it again, it is easy to get the answer. At that time, salt and iron were monopolized, and iron and salt were put together, one for people's livelihood and the other for military, and armor was a very labor-intensive killing weapon in ancient times. This thing is more labor-intensive and iron-intensive than swords. No matter who stored too much of this thing, the court would definitely feel uncomfortable. Master, do you recognize these armors? This is the first time I have seen them, and I can't even say their names. At this time, Luan Chuangsheng and Feng Yaozhe also came out of their respective rooms, staring at this large pile of things with interest. Shenroi carefully looked at the armor below. These armors are obviously women's armors. The armor type is smaller and shorter than normal armor. There are no conspicuous tassels on the helmets, and there are no conspicuous accessories on the armor. Although the things are still the same, many details have been adjusted. In terms of color, these armors are mostly dark, mainly blue and gray, and all the reflective parts of the entire metal armor are painted with a matte dark paint. Mingguang, Guangyao, Zilin, Shanwen, Wachu, leather armor, chainmail. The remaining ones look like cloth armor, but they are too thick compared to cloth armor. I don't know what they are. Yang Zhao looked at the vests and felt familiar, but she didn't dare to confirm it. After all, she had seen this thing in TV series, but she had never seen it in real life. The remaining ones are various forms of bulletproof vests. Xiaodaran naturally took over the conversation. There are metal, ceramic, fiberglass, etc., all of which are bulletproof vests with the highest specifications and the best materials. Xiaodaran gave Shenroi a brief introduction and brought the topic back. Because the situation is urgent, we don't know what kind of armor Comrade Yang can use, so we can only put all the ones that have been made in it. Please help me pick it out and see if there is any that can be used in the ring. Yang Zhao also had a questioning expression on his face. If he could wear armor and bulletproof vests, who would want to be stabbed by others with a knife? Yang Zhao probably hasn't been exposed to these things since she was a child. Some armor will affect her ability to move, and then she will put the cart before the horse. If she really wants to get hurt less in the ring, she should choose the lightest one. Yang Zhao and Xiaodaran, you look at me, I look at you. In fact, after seeing so many armors, she was a little greedy. Although these armors are dark, they are really handsome in shape. Shenroi is right. She has never been exposed to armor, except on TV and mobile phones. Now these handsome little cuties are in front of her. This is the dress-up game of ancient generals in reality. How can people not be itchy? But as I said before, this thing belongs to Yang Zhao now. There will be plenty of time to play with it in the future. Now the main focus is on the ring. Yang Zhao has never touched armor since he was a child. Wearing such a thick layer of metal armor, any movement will inevitably be a few points slower. Yang Zhao squatted down and discussed with the little bean man, and finally chose a bulletproof vest. After putting on this bulletproof vest, put on a layer of clothes outside, and there was no breakage when raising hands and feet. She put all the other armor into the Kyankan bag. With a flick of her wrist, the Jayana long spear appeared in her hand. Yang Zhao held the Jayana long spear and played with it in the yard. The whistling wind was mixed with dust, and the spiritual energy in the air was seduced by the spiritual power of the Jayana long spear, and bursts of colorful spiritual clouds appeared. Yang Zhao put away the gun and nodded with satisfaction. It's okay, it doesn't feel heavy. Shenroi watched Yang Zhao jumping up and down in the yard. Now that you are ready, let's go to the ring. Yang Zhao's face was bitter. Master, I haven't eaten yet. The emperor doesn't lack hungry soldiers. Let me finish eating before going. After eating and drinking, Yang Zhao began her journey as a sandbag. That was a real sandbag. The main performance was that, as long as she entered the ring, no matter whether the opponent knew her or not, she would be pressed to the ground and rubbed by the opponent in 3 moves. Many times, Yang Zhao's eyes didn't react, and she was already lying on the ring. This time, the fame she made in the tower yesterday helped Yang Zhao a lot. No opponent dared to kill him, and even his subordinates showed mercy. So except for a little bruise on his face and arms, Yang Zhao didn't bleed like other people fighting in the ring. He went to the ring 10 times, and the total time was no more than an hour. Excluding the waiting time, he was estimated to be on the ring for no more than 30 minutes. In these 30 minutes, there was also the time they took to greet each other as opponents on the ring. When encountering this situation, Yang Zhao couldn't help but secretly complain. It's not that the armor limits my mobility, it's clearly me who limits the usefulness of the armor. Yang Zhao gritted her teeth, holding her breath. She thought that she might be useless after entering the ring, but she never thought that she would be so useless. Facing this situation, Shenroi already had a plan in mind. Although Yang Zhao's overall cultivation was forcibly raised to the great perfection of foundation building by Shenroi, Luan Chuangshan and others, but her basic reaction ability, her hands-on ability, her ability to use spiritual power, her ability to use spells, etc. are still hovering in the early stage of foundation building. When faced with a real great perfection of foundation building and a veteran in the ring, Yang Zhao had no choice but to lose. In addition, because of the injury to the meridians in Yang Zhao's body, the channels for the use of spiritual power were incomplete, which made her completely disadvantaged in the ring. Make up for it tomorrow. Chapter 445, Lost. Yang Zhao approached Shenroi with a dusty face. Grandmaster. Shenroi slowly turned the silver conch in his hand. Did you gain anything? Yang Zhao was very depressed. She had never been so socially frustrated in her life. She lost again and again in front of so many people, and her losses were so clean and tidy that there was no point in watching them. This led to the situation that, before she even stepped onto the stage, someone was already yelling at her to get off the stage, which put a lot of psychological pressure on her. No, I didn't even realize that I had already lost. Losing is normal. Not losing is a problem. We can leave the tower after playing 30 games today. Shenroi raised her other hand, and a mobile phone screen was glowing faintly in the dark night. This is really a good thing. You can take a good look at where you lost when you go back. This. Yang Zhao's eyes suddenly widened. She looked around alertly and whispered to Shenroi's ear, Grandmaster, will it cause us any trouble to take out the mobile phone in such a public place? Shenroi smiled softly and said, this matter may be a problem for you, but it is not mine. Go to the ring. Don't waste time. Yang Zhao hesitated and was unwilling to move. Grandmaster. Shenroi pointed the phone at Yang Zhao. Go, I will record it for you. Video. Yes, that's the word. Video. Yang Zhao's face became more bitter, as if it was soaked in bitter juice, but there was no other way. He could only move step by step to the ring again. The ring is a defense type rule, divided into the 3 defense ring and the 5 defense ring. To defend the 3 is simply to win 2 out of 3 games. To defend the 5 is to win 3 out of 5. In comparison, defending the 3 is easier to play, so the points for defending the 5 are twice as many as those for defending the 3. Of course, Yang Zhao didn't distinguish between defending 3 and 5. She went up, just to increase the record of others, and was the one who got the best. She went up to the ring, and the defenders were actually quite welcome, but the audience hidden in the darkness around her were very dissatisfied. As soon as she got on the ring, the people around her began to boo. Get off quickly. That's it, and you still have the nerve to go on the ring? Little girl, you should go home and find your mother to feed you. I say, little girl, it's not right for someone like you to go on the ring without charging some money for defending the ring. Ha 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 ha. Yang Zhao wanted to shrink her head into her chest, introduce herself to the other party like a kitten, and then rushed up with her head held high. Lose. After 20 rounds, Yang Zhao's face was already bruised. Blood was oozing from the corners of his mouth, and his clothes were covered with dust. It's okay, no one was ruthless. This sentence was Shenroi's comfort. Where do you want to go to play later? With a bruised face, Yang Zhao didn't want to play anywhere. It was just noon, and she had only been in the tower for 3 hours. I'll go back. It's just right that you can send me a copy of the video you just recorded. I'll review it and learn some experience from it. It's good to watch it. In fact, your 30 rounds were not in vain. You still benefited from it. Hearing this, Yang Zhao couldn't even laugh. When he returned to the courtyard, Luan Chuangsheng and Feng were not there. They left a note saying that they went fishing and would be back in the evening. I don't know where these two people bought the fishing gear. The bowls, chopsticks, and plates that were thrown in the yard and cleaned by Yang Zhao were gone. They should have been picked up by the food store yesterday. After transferring the video from Shen Ruo's mobile phone to his own mobile phone via Bluetooth, Yang Zhao began to sort out his miserable history. Only in the video, from an outsider's perspective, did Yang Zhao know where he lost. For example, in the first round, Yang Zhao felt that, as soon as he walked away, a strong force came and pressed him to the ground. Only now did she realize that a dark, half-illusory hand suddenly appeared behind her and slapped her. Yang Zhao shuddered when he watched the video and felt a chill on his back. The main reason was that this song was too ghostly. When he thought of a ghost hand slapping him, he felt that the clothes on his back were all cold. In the second round, just as she was about to step forward, a small knife the size of a finger cap appeared in front of her eyes, and the tip of the knife was close to her left eyeball, making her dare not move. In the third round, she didn't know when she was directly imprisoned by the surrounding space and couldn't move a step. Now she realized that it was a small talisman attached to her heel. The fourth round. The fifth round. In the 13th round, Yang Zhao could already use spiritual power to stir the spiritual energy and perform some abrupt small spells, but she still lost in the first move. The reason was very simple. The opponent was always detailed and would directly knock her out of the ring. In the 14th round, she was knocked out of the ring by a wind column in the first move. In the 15th round, she was pressed to the ring with 5 bodies prostrated on the ground in the first move. In the 30th round, Yang Zhao fired 2 shots and used a small spell, but was violently knocked out of the ring by someone else's magic weapon. If you say there is no progress, at least she can stand on the ring for more than 10 seconds. If you say there is progress, Yang Zhao herself feels guilty when she sees this progress. Compared with others, she looks as stupid as a road deer in front of all opponents. She doubts whether the opponent is pitying her because she was really miserable in the end. Others are all chess and generals who meet good talents, and it is a fight to the death. She is an ant trying to shake a tree. She is the ant, and all opponents are trees. She can't even tell whether the opponent is strong or weak. Yang Zhao wanted to cover her eyes while watching. While covering her eyes, she watched it again. Finally, she made up her mind and edited the video, added a funny audio and a teasing sentence, and posted it on the video platform. The title of the video is My Various Ways of Dying, although Yang Zhao is now also a small internet celebrity with 2 million fans. But because she was not active in updating her videos, it was common for her to stop. This led to the incense sales growth rate not meeting expectations. She would have to stay in Xianfu for nearly a month. With Shuncheng being a ghost town, there was no scenery and no bustle, so Yang Zhao had nothing to shoot. She didn't dare to take a mobile phone to wander around the Tangshan pagoda. In order to prepare enough incense for herself, when she formed the elixir, in case of future troubles, she could only rely on Grandmaster Shen Ruo. As for face, it was better to lose it. As long as I don't open the comment section, I won't know if anyone is laughing at me. After Yang Zhao encouraged herself, she began to deal with her injuries. Most of her injuries were contusions. Because she was wearing a bulletproof vest, these injuries were mainly concentrated on her head and limbs. Those people were very accurate when they left, and no one was ruthless enough to break her bones and tendons. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 446, Bargaining, 2-in-1. First, she used her spiritual power to disperse the blood on her body. Then, Yang Zhao reached for the mucus of the sunfish she bought in the sea market last year. Since she bought it, she has only used it 2 or 3 times in the past year. Now there is still a small half can left, which is heavy. She picked up a little with her fingers, put it under her nose, and smelled it. It didn't taste any different. The color was still the clear and transparent color, so it should not have deteriorated. Yang Zhao boldly rubbed it on her bruised wound. For a while, she smelled fishy all over. When she was done, the sun had already set. The bright clouds surrounded the huge dark red planet that oppressed most of the sky. It looked wanton and overbearing. Yang Zhao couldn't help but extend her middle finger. Damn God, he always makes trouble for me. Have I offended the old man recently? She took out 2 remaining fasting pills from her Kyankan bag and stuffed them into her mouth. She chewed them without any spiciness and swallowed them in the afterglow of the setting sun. That was her dinner. She really didn't want to go out to buy food with the fishy smell on her body. Besides, she always felt a little uneasy and a little anxious in her heart, always feeling that she had forgotten something. You didn't forget anything, did you? I'll go to the arena tomorrow morning, attend the banquet at noon, and take a nap in the afternoon. Didn't you forget anything? Forget it. The boat will be straightened out when the time comes, and there is still the master to protect me. After thinking about it, she couldn't think of what it was, so she threw the idea out of her mind. It was dark at night, and Yang Zhao suddenly woke up from his dream and couldn't help hitting his head a few times. Are you stupid? What should I do if my parents see that kind of video? Yang Zhao couldn't help hitting his head twice. In the dark, she took out her mobile phone and placed it on the Dao card. Clicking on the loving family, her fingers pressed and deleted in the dialog box. Deleted and pressed again, and the last word was not sent out. How to explain this? This matter cannot be explained. Explanation is covering up, and covering up is the matter. As the saying goes, no one knows a daughter better than her parents. Her parents have watched her grow up since she was young. She has no privacy in her every move. As soon as she raises her hand, her mother knows what she is looking for, and as soon as she opens her mouth, her father knows what she is saying. She has never explained other videos. If she explains this video, her parents will definitely see that she is guilty. Yes, I can't explain it. Yang Zhao pressed the wound on her face. She no longer felt any pain. It is estimated that the blood has already disappeared, considering that the mucus of the sunfish is still so effective. But what can I do? Just post this one. She got up from the bed and started to walk around the room. No, if I only post this one, will the 2 old people think that I'm guilty? Will they think that I'm seriously injured? After all, Yang Zhao has delayed updating the video for nearly a month since she was injured this time. If she delays posting one video this time for another month, her parents will definitely have doubts in their hearts. Her mother is okay, but her father has a heart disease. No one in the family dares to make him anxious. Yang Zhao touched the corner of his mouth. Originally, a small cut was made on the corner of his mouth by the shake on the ring during the day, but it is gone now. As long as I appear in the video the next day, looking bright and beautiful without any injuries, and add some funny sound effects, make this video a funny video, and make the scene of me lying on the ground a deliberately designed script, it should be fine. She couldn't do this alone. She had to inform Guo Fu Minimum Kyang and let the young people who were taking care of her parents nearby to popularize what video scripts, acting, and posing are. After all, there are too many posing videos on the internet, which leads many people to think that many real videos are also posing. The more he thought about it, the more feasible it seemed. Yang Zhao found a little bean man in the middle of the night and told him the details of the matter. It was not a big deal, and the little bean man himself made a promise to Yang Zhao. Comrade Yang, don't worry, we will take good care of your parents. Yang Zhao thanked him profusely, and after the little bean man left, he put away the traction bean that had turned into a bean. The next day, Yang Zhao took out his mobile phone to take a picture, and sure enough, the wounds on his face had healed. He looked at the wound on his arm, and it was healed, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. After putting on a bulletproof vest, Yang Zhao followed Shen Roi into the Tower of Babel after dinner. In order to make time for the banquet at noon, she only fought 20 times in the Tower of Babel today, and then left the tower. Of course, although there were 10 fewer matches than yesterday, Yang Zhao was still like an ant trying to shake a big tree, and he was covered in dust. The audience booed him when he went on stage and asked him to leave. On the first day, Yang Zhao felt his face burning when he heard these words. On the second day, he didn't feel that his skin was much thicker, and he still felt burning, and wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. When Luan Chuangsheng saw Yang Zhao, he couldn't stop smiling. Come on, I'll treat you. Otherwise, it's a bit rude to go to the banquet with such wounds on your face. After all, the Tower of Babel is the capital of heaven. Yang Zhao went to the banquet with wounds on his face from the Tower of Babel, which made him feel a little aggrieved. Yang Zhao smiled and took 2 steps forward. Then I'll trouble you, Senior Luan. If it weren't for you, my injury would take a whole night to heal. Luan Chuangsheng casually summoned a small white light ball and placed it on a bruise on Yang Zhao's left forehead. In a few seconds, the bruise disappeared. Then Dr. Luan moved the small light ball to another bruise, and it healed in a few seconds. In just a few minutes, Luan Chuangsheng had healed all the superficial injuries on Yang Zhao. Let's go to the banquet. Yang Zhao took out 2 bottles of white wine from his arms as a gift, followed Shenroi and the other 3 out of the door, and led by Luan Chuangsheng went straight to Le Chapeau. We went fishing yesterday, and when we came back, we had nothing to do, so we walked around the city, and happened to find this place. This is an ordinary 2-story white stone building with a plaque of Le Chapeau hanging in the middle. Against the backdrop of other barren houses, this 2-story building looks so clean and conspicuous. As soon as they arrived at the happy food shop, a young man in blue and white clothes came up to them. You must be Senior Shen, Senior Luan and Senior Feng, right? Shenroi nodded. It's me. The young man bowed solemnly and said, my master, Master Lu, has been waiting for you upstairs for a long time. Seniors, please follow me. The young man turned around and led the way. Yang Zhao didn't even have time to pass the wine over. He could only speed up and catch up. They followed the young man all the way up to the 2nd floor. In a private room on the 2nd floor by the window, Yang Zhao saw the legendary Master Lu. Master, Senior Shen, Senior Luan, and Senior Feng are here. The announcement startled Master Lu, who was sipping tea. He glanced at the visitors and a faint smile appeared on his originally serious face. He stood up and greeted them first. I'm Lu Zeng, and I'm honored to meet you fellow Taoists. This Master Lu was thin and energetic, with grey hair and a grey beard. He was wearing a light-colored shirt. The wind blew in from the window, and he looked so immortal. Shenroi and the other 3 followed suit and saluted. Wulian Xianzhen, I'm Shenroi, the poor Taoist. I'm Luan Chuangsheng, and I'm honored to meet you fellow Taoists. The Wind of Ligun Valley is honored to meet you fellow Taoists again. Yang Zhao quickly stuffed the 2 bottles of wine in his hand into the arms of the young man who led the way, and bowed his head. Junior Yang Zhao greets Senior Lu. These are 2 bottles of wine from our hometown. Not really good wine, but the taste is novel, and I brought them for you to taste. Ha ha ha, you are so polite young friend. Let's taste your wine today. After a few words of greeting, the guests and hosts sat down. Master Lu instructed the disciple who led the way to start serving wine and food, and then began to greet each other tentatively. Dao Yao Luan and Dao Yao Feng are the best in the world of cultivation for their medical skills. Although I have lived in the countryside for a long time, I have heard of them. I didn't expect to see your grace today. I'm really impressed. Then he raised his glass with Shenroi. Dao Yao Shen's whole demeanor is really impressive. However, I have lived in the countryside for a long time, and have never heard of Dao Yao Shen's reputation. I should punish myself with a glass. As he said this, Master Lu raised his glass, and drank it all. Shenroi, Luan Chuangsheng and Feng also raised their glasses. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 dishes, Master Lu began to talk about business. I see that the spiritual power fluctuations on young friend Yang are very sluggish. He should be injured, and not suitable for Dan. The 3 Daoists came to Xianfu together. It should not be just to escort young friend Yang to Dan, right? The 3 looked at each other, and Shenroi spoke first. He briefly described the injuries on Yang Zhao's body. This time we came here to cure her injury, while she was forming a pill, and causing a tide of spiritual energy in her body. Master Lu immediately grasped the key point. That is to say, the 3 Taoist friends must also enter the heavenly tomb. Shenroi nodded. That's right. I wonder if fellow Taoist Lu can give me a favor? This. Master Lu pondered for a moment. If we say that we won't let you in, it's because we are stingy in Xianfu. After all, this heavenly tomb is only helpful for the younger generation to form a pill. This little bit of effect is really not a treasure in the world of cultivation, and naturally it is not worthy of your attention. But the heavenly tomb is not just a magic weapon, it is the resting place of the physical bodies of the disciples of my Xianfu sect. Now that the three of you want to go in, I really can't make the decision. In a word, he was afraid that Shenroi and the others would go in and cause trouble. After all, if a cultivator in the foundation establishment stage went in, he would only be a golden elixir when he formed a pill, and Master Lu could subdue him with one hand. And if Shenroi and the other three went in, if one of them got excited and dug up the grave inside, would Xianfu still be able to kill all three of them? Others don't say that Luan Chuangsheng is a graduate of a formal government school, a righteous cultivator, and has an official title. If Shen Sishan hadn't personally invited him, Yang Zhao wouldn't have been able to meet him. Besides, the Ligun Valley is still popular. Although Ligun Valley is not as powerful as Xianfu, the profession of doctors has no shortage of friends. Although he has never heard of Shenroi, Master Lu has also heard that he used his soul body to summon thunder to suppress the ghosts in the Tangshan Tower. It's not easy to meet him. If these three people have bad intentions, they can turn Xianfu upside down. I also know the difficulties of fellow Daoist, but my young man is seriously injured. If I don't hurry up to heal him, it may affect her future path. That's why I shamelessly asked for a door. Of course, it's not for nothing. She prepared a bill of exchange for 10,000 taels of silver to give tea money to everyone in Xianfu. Shenroi patted Yang Zhao's shoulder, and Yang Zhao quickly found a bill of exchange for 10,000 taels of silver in his Kyankan bag, and pushed it over. The three of us came here for Yang Zhao's injury, so we naturally won't be distracted. If fellow Daoist Lu is worried, you can follow us in. Shenroi's meaning was also simple. We came here to treat Yang Zhao's injury, so it's not for nothing, and we won't be greedy when we see the treasures in the sky. If you are worried, you can follow and monitor. Fellow Daoist, you are joking. Master Lu smiled and pushed the bill back to Yang Zhao. This is a big deal anyway. I can't make a decision on my own. I hope you three can wait for me for a day. I will discuss it with the others. Shenroi pushed the banknote back. Then I'd like to trouble you to say a few good words. You can take the money back first, and let the other people in your sect know that we are here with sincerity. Both sides refused for a while, and finally Lu Zhenren put the banknote into his sleeve. Then please wait for the news. On the way back, Yang Zhao felt a little uneasy. Halfway through the journey, Luan Chuangsheng greeted Feng to go fishing again, and the two of them went together, leaving Yang Zhao and Shenroi alone. Seeing that the two doctors had left, Yang Zhao hesitantly approached Shenroi. Grand Master, what do you think? If the other party doesn't agree, then my meridians can't be cured. The more she talked, the more bitter she felt, and the more she talked, the more she felt that God was playing a trick on her. What are you thinking about, little kid? If they can't get in, will Luan Chuangsheng and the others still have the heart to fish? Yang Zhao's eyes lit up. Grand Master, you mean Xianfu agreed? Am I deaf? Why didn't I hear Master Lu say yes just now? Shenroi looked at Yang Zhao speechlessly, with a trace of sympathy in his eyes. Since you got hurt, your brain doesn't seem to work very well. You spoke without restraint to me the past 2 days, and your brain is also slow today. I'm a little suspicious that you hurt your brain instead of your meridians. Yang Zhao's originally excited heart suddenly cooled down. She remembered that she almost blurted out that Shenroi had Alzheimer's disease in the tower 2 days ago. She thought that she was quick and the Grand Master didn't react, so he shouldn't care. Now it seems that, although Shenroi doesn't care, he keeps a record. Grand Master, I'm outspoken, but please believe me, I really didn't mean it. It was mainly because it was my first day in the tower, and the tower was full of ghosts. I was so scared that I couldn't stop talking. Please believe me, I definitely wanted to honor you. Okay, the past is the past. Shenroi waved his hand. Now use your little brain and think about when Master Lu agreed. Yang Zhao began to think carefully about what happened at the banquet, and suddenly his eyes lit up. Master Lu finally accepted the bill of exchange for 10,000 taels of silver. If he was not sure, he would not accept the bill of exchange. How can he return the silver he received? This is not just a matter of money, it is also a matter of face. Chapter 447. Halfway through the walk, Shenroi also took her cell phone and was about to leave. Grandmaster, where are you going? Take me with you. After being beaten in the Tower of Babel in the morning and wasting her brain cells in the Leshipu at noon, she now wanted to go shopping to relieve her mood. However, the ghosts in the Tower of Babel scared her, and she was always afraid that she would run into some dirty things if she went out alone, so she would rather stay in the yard by herself. But having someone to accompany her is another story. Shenroi lowered her head and played with her cell phone, saying nonchalantly, "You fly so slowly, I'm too lazy to take you." When Yang Zhao heard that the Grandmaster disagreed, he began to act like a spoiled child. "Grandmaster, how about I don't fly and you carry me there? Please, Grandmaster you see I've been beaten for 2 days." Shenroi looked up at Yang Zhao with some viciousness. Let's go. It was fine at the beginning. Why are you getting more and more spoiled now?" Yang Zhao stopped when she saw that things were going well. Thank you, master. It should be said that she is not being pretentious now, but she was quite pretentious more than 20 years ago. Yang Zhao was the first child. She was sick a lot when she was young. Even after she became a disciple of Lu Doran and her health improved, her parents were more pretentious to her than Yang Yun. They have never beaten her a few times since she was a child. She was treated completely differently from Yang Yun. Yang Yun has loved water since she was a child. For children in the north, children who love water and air to sneak into the water will inevitably be beaten. In this way, Yang Zhao and his friends left Shunsheng and began to wander around the island. In fact, it is not right to say that they wandered around. Yang Zhao and his friends did not go up the mountain, but flew slowly along the coastline. While flying, Shenroi was looking for angles, taking photos and recording videos, and Yang Zhao was chattering behind him to give him advice. Sometimes he looked up, sometimes he looked down, and he spoke clearly. Along the way, Yang Zhao and his friends saw many traces of mountain fractures. The entire island, except for a gentle slope, is surrounded by towering cliffs on 3 sides. Because Xianfu is an isolated island, there is no island chain around it, which leads to a large number of seabirds on Xianfu Island. It is summer now, and groups of half-grown seabirds are scattered all over the cliffs. The ones born earlier have grown wings, and the ones that came later are still furry, which makes Yang Zhao feel itchy. "Master, this little bird is so cute. Record more videos." The two of them walked while filming, and it took almost 2 hours to return to Shunsheng. The main reason was that the mobile phone battery was out of power, and Shenroi did not have the habit of modern people to charge it whenever they want. Back in the yard, Yang Zhao asked Shenroi to transfer all the videos he shot today to her. First, pull out the video of the one who was beaten on the ring and review it, then edit it, add some funny audio, and post it online. In the afternoon, Yang Zhao used a Dao card to post the landscape photos taken by Shenroi to the family of love and affection, telling them that she was here for a trip. After finishing her business, Yang Zhao flipped through the comments below the previous video. She hadn't browsed the comment section for some time. This video should be accelerated, right? Otherwise, how could it be so fast? Yeah, this doesn't sound like a normal person's rhythm. Even a serious fighting athlete can't do it that fast, right? That's because you don't know how strong athletes are. The difference between athletes and ordinary people is really greater than the difference between humans and dogs underscore. Don't compare me to a dog, thank you. What is this? The host's shooting to death. If I like the video, will I be left out of the blogger's travel quota next time? Deg. I counted a full 30 times. Every time he lay on the ground, as soon as he entered the ring. My old habit of embarrassing others came back again, digging my toes into the ground in embarrassment vertical bar. Of course it's embarrassing. Many times the bloggers fall to the ground, or fall outside the ring. If this kind of acting skills were put in the entertainment industry, they would beat a bunch of young handsome guys. Well, although it seems a bit of a loss of merit to say this, but compared with the opponent, the anchor is like a stick, standing there without turning back. In fact, didn't you notice? In this video, the blogger's reaction speed is far beyond that of ordinary people, but compared with her opponent, she looks very dull and rigid, but normal people definitely don't have her reaction speed. The video is accelerated. The person above who suspected that the video was accelerated is obviously a new fan. Old fans all know that the blogger is my master, who is highly skilled in martial arts and has unparalleled magical powers. He can wield a big gun so hard that no one can get in. He can call the wind and rain, fly in the clouds. There are 3 life-saving hairs on the back of his head, and he can travel a long distance with 1 somersault. Is the person above talking about the legendary Monkey King Sun Wukong? ***, who can see clearly how the blogger lost these 30 times? I only saw 5 times clearly, and they were the 5 most conspicuous ones. I'm a bit better than you. I saw it clearly 12 times. The main reason is that the lighting at the shooting site was not too strong, and the opponent's moves were relatively obscure and difficult to see. My friends and I have found 21 places and sent them to the group of the Cultivation War Propaganda Bureau. Friends who are interested can join the Cultivation War Propaganda Bureau to watch. The Cultivation War Propaganda Bureau is recruiting new members in order to cope with the increasingly complex overseas situation. The 15th and 16th groups of the Cultivation War Propaganda Bureau are now recruiting new members. There are not many places available, so please apply as soon as possible, because our main battlefield is still abroad. Those who can speak English, French, Japanese, Russian, Arabic, etc. will be given priority. Those who are interested can click on my avatar to apply to join. We have several members of the Cultivation War Propaganda Bureau who are fighting with Comrade Yang in another world, and they can bring the latest information about cultivation every day. Let us follow Comrade Yang into the cultivation together. Excuse me, why are you called comrades when others are called bloggers? Because our group member said that most of the people who followed Comrade Yang in the struggle in the other world called her comrade, and Comrade Yang did not deny it, so we have agreed to change our words to call her comrade, not immortal master. I'm learning Thai, and I apply to join the battle. Our company purchases all kinds of information about the cultivation world, starting from 300 yuan per piece of information, and there is no upper limit. If you are interested, please click on the avatar to contact me. Our company is urgently hiring translators of the other world language, even if they can understand it, it's fine. 6 insurances and 2 funds, and the monthly salary starts at 30,000. If you are interested, please click on my avatar to sign up. Our company is urgently hiring. If anyone has grabbed the blogger's travel qualifications, please click on the avatar to contact me. 6 insurances and 1 fund. The monthly salary starts at 100,000. It is a formal company, and you can go to the company for on-site inspection. Please download the anti-fraud app. Don't transfer money to strangers. Don't be tempted by high salaries. Don't transfer to Myanmar, Laos and other places. There is no such thing as a free lunch. I'm tired of saying this. 110 I'm calling the police. The next day, when Yang Zhao came out of the tower with a bruised face, he really received a message from Master Lu, saying that the 10,000 taels of silver had worked, and Shen Ruoyu, Luan Chuangsheng and the other 2 could enter the heavenly tomb, but they had to be accompanied by someone special. The stone in Yang Zhao's heart finally fell to the ground. Although he knew yesterday that the other party would agree, things that were not certain could change at any time. Now he can finally have a good meal. I'll make up for it tomorrow. There was no electricity today due to the heavy rain. Chapter 448, Archaeology. The morning fog, mixed with cold air, whizzed through the gaps in people's clothes. Wang Xiaoquan was walking in the middle with a total station on his back, panting. There were 2 escorts on his left and right. The 3 of them took turns carrying a heavy total station. There were more than a dozen people in this team. They walked between the steep mountains in the south, looking for roads, where there were no roads, crossing cliffs, climbing mountains and wading through water for more than 3 hours, before they arrived at a ruin on the top of a mountain. They got off the car at the foot of the mountain at 6 in the morning, and now it is 9:30. After confirming the location temporarily, everyone looked up and saw that the ruins were hidden in a patch of grass. A few trees were growing crookedly, and only a few low walls were crawling on the ground. The rest had long been submerged in the weeds. Everyone drink some water and take a break. An old man with white beard took off his hat and fanned the wind, asking everyone to sit down, and gave a worried instruction. Those who want to eat can't eat now. Take a breath before eating, or you'll have a stomach ache. After 3 hours of walking, everyone was already tired and weak in the waist and legs. Now they didn't care whether it was dirty or not. They found a relatively flat place to sit down. Everyone drank water and ate food, and didn't care about the beautiful scenery around them. No matter how beautiful it was, they were in no mood to look at it after 3 hours of tiredness. The mountains in the south are dark green from a distance even in winter. Only when you get closer can you see the dead grass and fallen leaves on the ground. After the group of people took a breath, some people started to speak. Is this the legendary Jinping temple? Wang Xiaoquan had a candy in his mouth, and his voice was a little unclear. Tang Pingping used her feet to pick up the dead leaves on the ground. Anyway, we should follow the route we found in the county annals. It should be correct, but it is a bit badly damaged. The county annals say that it was built in the late Southern Song dynasty and abandoned in the middle of the Ming dynasty. It is not very old, and there are few people here. It should not be so completely destroyed. So the secrets in it are up to us to discover. A boy with a short haircut hit his leg. Tang Pingping muttered softly when she heard it. What are you excavating? We have been scouting everywhere for more than a year. No matter what we are digging, we can't take over. We are either in the car or on the way to the car. We don't know what the professor wants to find. She studied archaeology. Since she started, they have always been notified that some ancient tombs have been destroyed or stolen, and they have been notified to do protective excavation. They have never explored once, dug a little, found something wrong, and left immediately. This is not like archaeology. This is like the scouting behavior of tomb robbers. All the work in the past year was started by them, and they started to move to other places after working for 2 days. All the subsequent work and results were taken over by others. For a new archaeologist like her, this kind of thing is very frustrating. Wang Xiaoquan saw that the atmosphere was not right, so he took out his phone and tried to smooth things over. When I saw the stone tiger just now, I took a photo. Who wants one? All the young people became excited after hearing this. I want one. I want one too. That stone tiger is so sensitive. I only saw a tail, and you were able to take a photo. Your hand speed is too fast. Hearing this, Wang Xiaoquan couldn't help but feel proud. That's because I have sharp eyes. I was the first to see it. I took a photo with my phone and then called you. This caused everyone to boo. We want them all. It's troublesome to send them one by one. You can send them to the group. Wang Xiaoquan stood up with his phone to find a signal and finally shook his head regretfully. It's another place with no signal. Let's go back. When we get back to a place with signal, I'll send the photos to our group. No signal is a common thing for them, so there is nothing to complain about. Okay, don't forget this. A 40-year-old middle-aged man sitting next to the old man laughed at the interaction of the young people. It's still good to be young. After walking such a long distance, I feel energetic after just a short rest. We are old. My legs are cramping now. Alas, you can't say that. If you want to be old, you are old, not me. I'm in great shape now, not inferior to young men at all. The man who talked to him was from the northeast, and his voice was loud and clear. To be honest, I really don't like staying here in the south in winter. I'm almost suffering from rheumatism in the winter. After everyone talked for a while, the uncle with the northeast accent stood up and greeted everyone. Okay, we've finally caught our breath. If we sit any longer, our hands and feet will be numb. Let's stand up and move around. Find a good place to set up the equipment. Although everyone was still very tired, the damp and cold air in the south stared at them like a poisonous snake spitting out its tongue, threatening to crawl on them if they didn't move. Okay. A group of people got up reluctantly and looked for a suitable place to put the equipment. This job was easy for these young people, and they quickly found a good place. The first step was to pull out the weeds. After working for a long time to clear a clean area, everyone started to set up the equipment, raise the drone, and start digging with a shovel, each doing their job in an orderly manner. After all the preparatory work was ready, the old man who had been resting for a long time without speaking carefully took out a metal anti-collision box wrapped tightly in a towel from his school bag behind him. He took the box and approached Tang Pingping, who was digging a hole. Next to it was a large plastic sheet with more than a dozen small piles of soil on it. These soils were dug out by Tang Pingping with a shovel and piled up according to the vertical distance of digging downwards. Each small pile of soil was numbered. There were 4 or 5 such plastic sheets on the site. The old man opened the box in his hand, and inside lay a golden ginkgo leaf. He carefully took out the leaf and buried it in the first pile of soil. He took it out 5 minutes later. Seeing that there was nothing unusual about the leaf, he was not discouraged and continued to bury the leaf in the next pile of soil. He has been doing this job for a year and his mentality is very stable. To do archaeology, patience is required. The colleagues and students around him were not curious about his strange behavior. At the beginning, they thought that the professor might have taken the wrong medicine, but now they are indifferent to this obviously abnormal behavior. When the leaf was taken out of the 13th pile, the old professor glanced at it and didn't care much. He buried the leaf in the 14th pile. Tang Pingping, who was drinking water next to him, suddenly widened his eyes at this moment. Professor, the leaf stalk of the ginkgo I just saw seems to be green. Chapter 449, Discovering the Teleportation Formation, 2-in-1. Green. The professor was a little slow to react and muttered to repeat the sentence. You didn't see it wrong? Tang Pingping nodded hesitantly. She just took a look, and now being asked this question, she also doubted whether her eyes were blurry. It shouldn't be. Wasn't the whole leaf yellow at the beginning? But when you took it out just now, I saw that the leaf stem was obviously a little green. The professor blinked, stretched out his hand to carefully dig up the number 14 pile of soil, and took out the ginkgo leaf inside. He took out his glasses from his arms and put them on. He did find that the leaf stem was a little green, but he didn't believe his eyes. After all, this leaf has been in his arms for a year, and he didn't recognize it. He now doubted his eyes, and doubted that the leaf stem of this leaf was originally a little green. Tang Pingping, do you think this leaf is different from before? Tang Pingping was also a little uncertain. The old professor didn't recognize this leaf, and they could only take a look at it on a daily basis, so they were also a little uncertain now. She hesitated to give an idea. How about burying it in the number 13 mound for a while longer? Okay. Or do you young people have an idea? The old professor quickly took out his mobile phone to take a photo of the leaf, and then buried the leaf in the number 13 mound. Their changes naturally attracted other people's attention. Everyone involuntarily focused their attention on the number 13 mound. Even if they were stupid for more than a year, they would have reacted. The reason why the professor ran around and excavated relics everywhere in the past year was for this ginkgo leaf. Now that a year of hard work is about to bear fruit, how can they not pay attention? In the somewhat restless atmosphere, 5 minutes seemed so long. When the timer sounded, everyone had put down their work and gathered together. The professor carefully opened the number 13 mound, brushed the soil off the leaf with a small brush, and took out the ginkgo leaf inside. While looking at it, he compared it with the photos on his mobile phone, but he still had no confidence. He now began to suspect that the photos taken by the mobile phone had color difference. Tang Pingping, the green is bigger than before, isn't it? Tang Pingping nodded affirmatively. It looks like it is. It seems not only green, but the water content of the leaf stems has increased. She pinched the leaf stems involuntarily and found that it was indeed more resilient than before. Let's buy another 10 minutes. Okay. Everyone stared at the professor's actions, not wanting to do anything else, just wanting to gather here. The professor also stared at the number 13 soil pile nervously, not daring to look away. Naturally, he didn't pay attention to the actions of others. The cold air in the south cannot be eliminated even by the sun in the sky. But the people standing and squatting on the scene seemed not to notice it. 10 minutes later, a cheer resounded throughout the mountaintop. The middle-aged man who spoke a northeastern dialect was the first to shout out. It's really green. Oh, there won't be any color in this soil? His voice seemed to remind others, and everyone began to discuss. But it looks like ordinary soil. How can it dye the leaves green? It can't be fuel. How can there be dye that only dyes the leaf stems, but not the leaves? I didn't learn chemistry well, but leaves that have been dead for a year can come back to life again. This is a bit unscientific. Hahaha, who cares if it's scientific or not? Science is also the science of biology, not our archaeology. The overturning of the biological giant tower is also their anxiety, and it has nothing to do with our archaeology. Hahaha. The old professor wore glasses and carefully observed the leaf amid the noisy noise of others. After confirming again and again, he carefully put the leaf into the anti-collision box, stood up and clapped his hands to suppress the noise around him. Liu, send a signal quickly and ask them to send us supplies. We can't go back tonight. Okay, teacher, I've been waiting for you to say this. Liu, speaking in a northeastern accent, took out his newly snatched Mate 60 Pro and made a satellite call. Wang Xiaoquan looked at it hesitantly, took out his mobile phone, and found that there was still no signal. Why does Teacher Li's mobile phone have a signal? Because Teacher Li uses the latest Huawei Mate 60 Pro. It's not a phone, it's a satellite terminal. What? How come I don't know what a satellite terminal is? I only know that the chip has been broken through. Why did it suddenly change its name? Tang Pingping patted Wang Xiaoquan's shoulder comfortingly. This is because your internet speed is not fast. Wang Xiaoquan looked at the mobile phone with some envy. After Liu finished the call, he put the mobile phone in his arms in the envious eyes of the crowd. He whispered in the old professor's ear and then drove away the circle of people he like ducks. Okay, I finished the call. Our work today has made a breakthrough. Now is not the time to be stupid. Hurry up, move. Wang Xiaoquan let out a wail. Our professor, let us see the leaf again. We also want to see this warrior leaf who kicks biology wildly. Liu was indifferent and waved his hand to drive people away. What are you looking at? You can't see anything more. Let's get to work. There was no other way, so everyone could only reluctantly go back to their original work. Less than an hour later, the noise of the huge rotor blades came, and everyone looked up and saw a helicopter flying over from a distance, and soon it landed on top of everyone's head. The plane descended vertically a little bit, and the large metal boxes began to slowly flow down under the pull of the rope, and soon fell to the ground. Then, a few soldiers in military uniforms and armed with live ammunition were left on the rope. When they reached the ground, the rope on the helicopter automatically detached, and then the helicopter began to rise and turned around and flew back. The soldiers ran straight ahead with a clear goal, and the gray-haired old professor saluted. Professor Feng, we are from the Anning City Armed Police Force. My surname is Sun Jiancheng. We are temporarily responsible for your safety. As he said this, he took out the relevant documents from his arms and handed them to Professor Feng. Professor Feng wore glasses and read it carefully. The bright red national seal was bright. He looked at it for a while and then handed the certificate to Liu next to him. He rarely came into contact with the armed police and did not recognize these certificates. Liu looked at it once, nodded, and put the certificate back in Professor Feng's hand. Teacher, you are right. The person the other party was talking about on the phone is this person. The old professor returned the certificate to Sun Jiancheng. Then I will trouble Comrade Sun for this period of time. How will the next tasks be allocated? Sun Jiancheng took the certificate and said, it's all our job. From now on, Professor Sun, you do your job, and we do ours. We just don't bother each other. Okay, now we haven't determined the approximate scope. Comrade Sun, just don't touch our tools and the holes we dug. Everything else is fine. It stands to reason that so many strong guys can clear the weeds and trees in this area. But Professor Sun was not confident in handing this job to people who were not archaeologists. They had to clean the weeds themselves. Sun Jiancheng put the certificate in his pocket and saluted Professor Feng again. Professor Feng, don't worry, I will complete the task. After saying that, he took care of the people following him and went to the side to set up defenses. It was the first time for the students to see armed police with real guns. Both men and women had bright eyes when they saw the armed police. The heavily protected bulletproof helmets, army green bulletproof vests, handsome military boots, rifles on the back, and pistols hanging on the waist. Everything told these people what professionalism is. This is the first time I've seen a real gun. Can I go and beg that guy to let me touch it? Tang Pingping held the shovel in both hands and stared at the armed police. Wang Xiaoquan was also jealous. Which man would not be jealous of these equipment? Even if he had never touched it, he had seen a lot of pictures on the internet. I want to touch it, but I guess it's not possible. What should we do if they treat us as enemies again? At this moment, a discordant voice appeared next to him. What's so good about touching a gun? Is a shovel in our hands more important? Why are you all gathered here? Don't you see that the supplies are all placed here? Hurry up and unpack them and take out everything inside. Wang Xiaoquan laughed and said, let's go loot. While they were laughing and joking, within 10 minutes, another helicopter came and transported a few armed policemen. At the same time, in an office at a certain base, a man in his 30s in military uniform broke into an office without knocking on the door. He ignored the angry eyes of the chief in the room, closed the door and shouted, "Chief, the number 32 archaeological team sent a message saying that they suspected that they had found traces of a teleportation array." The old chief, who was sitting behind his desk with angry eyes, couldn't help but look a little strange when he heard the news. He didn't seem to be angry or laughing, as if the muscles on his face didn't adjust their expressions well. Really, I'm not lying about this. If you lie to me, I'll kick you out of the grassroots. The man was more excited than the chief and stuffed the information in his hand into the chief's hand. Chief, how can I lie about military intelligence? Take a look, it's true. The chief flipped through the information with trembling hands, laughing as he flipped from the initial smile to the final laughter. Ha 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 ha. In a few days, I'll find a free time to go to the Martyrs Park. This is definitely the paper money I burned for my comrade in arms 2 days ago. That kid loved money when he was alive. He was reluctant to spend a penny of his salary. His socks were so torn that they couldn't be sewn, but he still wore them. Now he's dead, and I have to give him money to make him do things for me. But this time I have to thank him very much. Ha 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 ha. The person standing next to him couldn't help but remind him in a low voice. Commander, if you don't allow burning paper money, I will order you a bunch of chrysanthemums when the time comes. Ha ha ha, that's fine ha ha ha. He can't pick on me, and he can't hit me now. If he picks on me, ha ha ha. After laughing for a while, the old commander put down the documents in his hand. Pass the order down. Now our entire army is on level 3 combat readiness. The young man saluted. Yes. The old commander continued in a deep voice. This time Anning City is in our territory. From now on, we have an extra border line in this hinterland. Write the coordinates of that place into our missile system now, and the satellites in the sky are also keeping a close eye on it. If something really runs out of it, and we don't stop it, then we will be the sinners of the people of the whole country and the whole world. After all, a DNA invasion is enough to make people suffer. Yes. Call the leadership of the entire army. Let's start a meeting to discuss how to deploy defenses on this borderline. Yes. Anning City. In the next few hours, soldiers went up the mountain one after another. Some led the team and carried supplies to climb over, and some came in helicopters. It is said that many people majoring in archaeology are coming to support by plane. By night, the ruins on the top of the mountain had become a large construction site. The next day, the first team of archaeologists who came to support also went up the mountain. The leader of this group of people is a female professor in her 50s. She led her team and went through many checkpoints before meeting Professor Feng. She was not polite and communicated with Professor Feng directly. Then she took out the same anti-collision metal box from the backpack on her back, which contained a golden ginkgo leaf. Someone next to her set up a professional video recorder. Come on, the second verification experiment begins. She reverently buried the ginkgo leaf in the 13th small mound. 5 minutes later, the ginkgo leaf stems in the small mound were already dyed green. The female professor couldn't help laughing. Professor Feng, ha 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 ha, it has to be you. Although I don't know how many teams have been sent out, only you have made progress. The others still have to endure in the deep mountains and old forests. Professor Feng smiled modestly beside him. Alas, this is also luck. I was lucky to come across it. As he spoke, Professor Feng couldn't help laughing. This year, he was either checking ancient books, historical books of various dynasties, and prefecture and county annals, or he was on the road by car. He didn't go home all year round. Now that the results have come out, he can't help but be happy. In the afternoon, more than 100 people from the archaeology major came one after another. In the end, more than 100 people were thrown into this construction site. The grass here had been pulled out long ago, and people were numbered and put aside in different categories. A group of people began to lie on the ground, and various small shovels and small brushes were used together to start excavation work according to the depth of the number 13 mound. This work has been going on for half a month. At this time, all the people within 30 kilometers of this mountain have moved out under the persuasion of the grassroots leadership team. Even the elderly who were very old and attached to their homeland were persuaded to leave by these people. At the same time, large numbers of troops entered the mountains, large numbers of construction materials were transported in, and fortifications began to be built. I don't know how many eyes were staring at this place, openly or secretly. At this time, Anning City was the most worrying place in the whole country. I came to take advantage of Huawei's popularity. Hahaha. I just bought a new mobile phone 6 months ago. It was too early. Chapter 450. No splash. Of course, military mobilizations generally do not attract people's interest on the internet. The military posted a notice on the public platform about a certain military district's combat readiness exercise, reminding the citizens of Anning City not to panic. Although there were sporadic self-media posts, it did not attract much attention. Only the people of Anning City were excited to watch the armed troops coming in and out, but they all thought it was an exercise. Apart from taking out their mobile phones to record a video and muttering a few words about how handsome they were, there was nothing else. Some videos cannot even be posted online because they are confidential. This incident did not cause a particularly big sensation either on the internet or in reality. There are too many things on the internet that attract people's attention. Today, this star endorsed and became a hot search, and a group of fans praised him. Tomorrow, which country is very developed and humane in which aspect, and the Chinese should reflect on it, which attracted a lot of self-awakening parties. The day after tomorrow, my brother's house collapsed, and a group of fans cried and beat their chests and stamped their feet, regretting it. There are 60 hot searches every day, and celebrities account for 80%. That's really the extent that a star's sneeze can become a hot search. In this way, the changes in a certain army did not attract the attention of the general public. Of course, the fact that the general public in China did not pay attention to it did not mean that the elites abroad did not pay attention to it. It was just that they did not say anything about it. They wrote it down in their own notebooks for meetings, in order to use it as a bargaining chip for the next year's expenditure budget in the parliament. This matter did not make any splashes and naturally sank to the bottom. In Anning City, Wang Xiaoquan did not know what was going on the internet, because from the first day, their mobile phones were restricted. No matter how turbulent the waves outside were, they could not get wet. These people have been lying on the top of the mountain every day for the past 2 days. Because they did not know what to look for, and did not have any specific goals, they even numbered and classified ordinary stones, not to mention plants and trees. They had to restore the specific location information of stones and plants to the computer 121 for modeling. This part of the work could not be done by these archaeologists, and the modeling talents were still supported by the army. Because the requirements were unprecedentedly complicated, their excavation work did not go smoothly. It was only after half a month of digging that they encountered a particularly difficult problem for the first time. The reason was very simple. They dug up a small tomb under a half-hollow wall. This was not a low wall at all, but a grave. This was a very ordinary tomb, without a coffin. A small corpse sitting cross-legged with his hands folded was buried straight in the soil. The corpse looked only about 30 centimeters tall, with a small 5 wisdom crown on his head, an apricot yellow monk's robe on his body, and a dark red 7 treasure cassock on the outside. Although the 7 treasure cassock fabric had faded a little, it was well made, with the 7 treasures of Buddhism sewn on it: gold, silver, glass, coral, amber, giant clam, and agate. These old archaeologists were 80% sure at a glance that these were all real. At first, they all thought that this was an exquisite Buddha statue that was buried underneath. Unexpectedly, after further digging, they found that under the 5 wisdom crown was a furry monkey face. The monkey had a kind face, eyes closed, head lowered, body hunched, 2 front paws clasped in front of the chest, sitting on a small stone-carved lotus pedestal of the 8th grade. Next to the lotus pedestal was a small pestle for subduing demons. Under the lotus pedestal was a line of small traditional Chinese characters. It is not easy to set up the formation. Do not move. Do not move. This was a dried corpse, a monkey's work. Damn, has this monkey become a spirit? Tang Ping Ping rarely cursed. This image is too typical in the memory of Chinese people. Could it be one of those Buddhist monkeys, the kind that listens to people chanting sutras every day, and then beats the wooden fish by itself, and is very close to people? How is that possible? Have you seen anyone put a 5 wisdom crown on a monkey and wear a 7 treasure cassock? Then maybe it's a little disciple accepted by a master, and then this little disciple has been alive, so he has a high generation. After his death, the monks in the temple gave this monkey honor. You know, a macaque can live for 20 years. Can you guys stop always focusing on finance? I'm not an archaeologist, so I have some professional qualities. My professional qualities are reflected here. Do you still want me to tell what kind of monkey this is? But it's also strange. You said there wasn't even a coffin. It was just buried in the soil sitting on a lotus platform. The body and clothes are so well preserved. If there wasn't anything unusual about the soil, I would have thought it was just buried a few days ago. Logically speaking, even if it was buried a few days ago, given the geographical location in the south, snakes, ants, insects and rats should have targeted it a long time ago. How could it be preserved so well? A professor from the south stared at the mummy several times. This should be a macaque, but I can't tell the specific species. I need to find a professional. Professor Feng circled the mummy twice. It's not important now whether it's a monkey or not. What's important is whether we should dig it or not. The most difficult thing is whether to dig or not. After all, it is written on the lotus platform that the formation is not easy to arrange and it is not allowed to move. The archaeologists who visit the ruins outside know some specious news. Otherwise, they would not run around with the ginkgo leaves. They are never looking for anything. They are looking for the big formation below. But the message on the lotus platform is also true. They are archaeologists, but they really don't know much about formations. What if a shovel digs the wrong way and the formation can't be used? What should I do? Everyone looked at each other and finally decided not to dig. The most important thing for archaeologists is to listen to others' advice and have a full meal. If someone says there is a trap ahead, you have to believe it. This is the experience accumulated by generations of archaeologists with blood and tears. Let's not move yet. Tell everyone to stop. Let's report to the higher-ups first to see if they can support us with some relevant personnel, such as the formation. Soon, the news reached the higher-ups. But the higher-ups were also at a loss about this matter. They have only been studying the formation for a year, and they haven't even thoroughly understood the most basic theoretical knowledge yet. How can they have any outstanding talents? After they knew about the teleportation formation, they immediately sent people to explore in many places in the country in order to find all the teleportation formations and take control of these alternative borders. Don't dream that someday foreign enemies suddenly invade from the country, which would be a huge disaster. After finding it, their original plan was to take out the positioning Sinan and the teleportation formation and close these formations instead of destroying them. These teleportation formations are windows to the outside world, and it would be painful to damage one of them. But now there are no professionals. How can this positioning Sinan be found? If people dig randomly, the formation will definitely be useless. Have you asked Uncle Gongsun about this? Yes, but Master Gongsun said that his Taoism doesn't care about Buddhism. Well, let's go ask Yang Zhao. Everyone decided to leave it at that. Then, everyone turned their attention to the big screen. The big screen was the monkey mummy wearing clothes and a crown. We collected some hair and clothing fibers for a search and found that this monkey has been dead for more than 230 years, but its body and clothes are not rotten or damaged. We initially suspect that this is a Buddhist monk who guards the teleportation formation like Uncle Gangsun, but after his life ended, he didn't find a second person to guard the formation. The man who was introducing the mummy with the laser pointer obviously didn't regard him as an alien, but as a person, a Buddhist. As soon as he finished speaking, someone started asking questions. How did you determine that he had cultivated his spiritual wisdom? Because someone at the scene simply weighed the body. Because the body was sitting, it was 32 centimeters tall, but weighed 86 kilograms. We used a metal detector to detect that there was absolutely no metal in the body. The participants knew that people who practiced Taoism in China progressed slowly, and the changes in weight had not exceeded everyone's cognition. But there was an example right in front of everyone. That was Yang Zhao. Yang Zhao's weight had skyrocketed since he started practicing Taoism, and when he reached the foundation building stage, his weight had even entered an inhuman stage. While the meeting was still going on, Yang Zhao had already received the news. Facing the country's prosperity and people's strength waiting for her advice, Yang Zhao had no specific good ideas. Of course, the person who knows the formation best in China is Uncle Gangsun. But Uncle Gangsun is a tree, a tall ginkgo tree located in the north. And Anning is in the south, thousands of miles apart. How can you ask Uncle Gangsun, a tree, to get there, dig him out, and transport him by train? Don't even mention whether to transport him or not. Just ask if anyone dares to dig him out. The second person Yang Zhao thought of was Grandmaster Shen Ruoyu. She ran straight to Shen Ruoyu and asked Grandmaster if he was familiar with the teleportation array. How can I know that? Even if I knew those things when I was alive, I have forgotten them all now. Yang Zhao slapped her forehead. She forgot that Grandmaster was an amnesiac. Yang Zhao thought about it and went through every corner of her brain. Finally, a big monk covered in blood appeared in front of her. Yang Zhao, remember last year I invited a master back and asked you to bury him? Guo Fumin Qiang, we have already buried that master. We can't dig up his body, can we? Yang Zhao, how can you think of such a terrible thing? Yang Zhao, I'm talking about the other two things. The master's staff and bowl have their own consciousness. Can't we just ask them to come out of the mountain? Guo Fumin Qiang, but since they came back, they have only spoken 3 times. Once was about the master's burial, once was about their stay or departure, and once was about whether to accept disciples. Guo Fumin Qiang. The rest of the time, they were no different from ordinary tools, which resulted in the work of accepting disciples not going smoothly. Guo Fumin Qiang. We have also discussed this situation. We suspect that it is very likely that the spiritual pressure here is too great, making it difficult for them to move. Yang Zhao, they can't move on other things, so can't they move on to the Buddhist sect's own affairs? Yang Zhao, let Yang Yun ask Uncle Gangsun to see if he can give them a useful ginkgo leaf, and then let Yang Yun take these 2 on a trip. We'll try our best. Yang Zhao, or wait another month or 2 until I succeed in forming the elixir. I'll see if I can spend a lot of money to buy a teleportation formation map. Let you study it. Guo Fuminamum Qiang. Then we'll go get the staff and the arms bowl. You just wait for our good news. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.